right, welcome everybody. And for those joining us, uh, I think it's live. I probably should have actually played an intro instead of just pushing a couple of buttons. But we go live every Saturday to answer questions that come into the website, askonquestions.com. Tony joins us. Welcome. I guess
Hey,
I haven't
thanks
said,
for having me.
let me try. I guess I haven't said it for a while, but Tony from New Jersey. So I'm out here in Arizona. I guess I just take that for granted since we have a lot of the same people joining us every week. But for people that maybe catching it for the first time or listening on the podcast or something. We've both been gun owners for a long time. We're both old, and we're both kind of more from interest. Well, I wouldn't say that. I was going to say I'm more interested in the activism at this point, but Tony's out there shooting a couple of times a month at least. So, yeah, we just offer some insight as people that aren't necessarily the typical folks online trying to be experts. Because I don't think we're trying to be experts. We're trying to offer some insight. Anyway, with that being said, we go live and same time each week, Saturday afternoons. A couple of reasons. I think back in the day, I've been doing most of my shows weeknights, really. And then somewhere along the line, I wanted to try doing a Saturday show. And I imagine whenever we started this one, I was thinking, let's start doing a Saturday show. And I think someone who had been like regularly scheduled for Saturdays stopped doing their show. I think Barbecue must have stopped doing his show, maybe. So can't remember. It's been a while. Anyway, I started doing this show on Saturdays, and it sort of works. A lot of people show up live, and that's what it's all about. Tony has the time most weeks, so it works out. And it's before a couple of other shows that happen. Right after this, well, a couple hours after this one usually is a mental health. What's it called? I can't think of the name. I'm trying to think, and I can't. She's changed it from Suicide Prevention Saturday because of YouTube's inability to differentiate between the negative use of the word suicide and a positive attempt to normalize the conversation about suicide prevention and mental health awareness. So Brooke does an excellent job, and I'm happy to do this show and usually link to it whenever possible. Then Hillbilly does a live show on the Saturday evenings, and then Foss hosts a live show overnights on Saturday. Right as we're doing this one, Mike is recording or streaming the Arms Room Radio in Florida. We kind of collide right on top of that schedule. And then there used to be some stuff that happened in the mornings on Saturday, so it just worked out to be a good day to do shows. So we welcome everybody who joins us live and ask questions. Otherwise, if no questions come in, we kind of just chat a little bit and then grab questions that come in from the website. So I've talked for a bit. Tony, what's been happening in your neck of the woods?
In my neck of the woods, my guys have kicked the nest. We're actually doing a lot of preliminary work on setting up the diversity shoot as a charitable organization, 501c3. We'll be working with CNJFO. So this week, I mean, truthfully, my guys are doing the work. Meeting with them, finding out what we have to do, getting support from CNJFO, which is the Coalition of New Jersey Firearms Owners, which is a Second Amendment organization here that has been working with me, I think, since year like two, I think since 2016, since they got founded. They worked with me. Even prior to that, the guys that formed it came from another organization, and I'd worked with them because when I started my 2A advocacy, I worked with the groups that already existed, like all of them. So when I said, hey, I'm starting my thing and this is why, every group said, well, almost every group said they'd support what I did. And over the time they have, the CNJFO is the one that's just stayed with me the whole time. They provide most of my volunteers. Actually, everybody that volunteers for me now has eventually joined the Coalition of New Jersey Firearms Owners. And we just work together in this fight. So that's how they're going to bring me in. Actually, I think I got like membership pin like number 7 for CNJFO. So they're bringing me in, and it's really great. And I can't wait to launch this thing. We have companies that are going to support us, but that's what I've been doing in the advocacy world this week, and I really appreciate it. I was supposed to be a train and learn, but this takes precedent, and the fees and all that stuff you have to pay. The money that I would have spent on, renting a hotel room and, train and learn itself and renting a car, all of that's going into this. So if you guys want to help a brother out and make some donations, uh, you can visit our website, diversityshoot.com, and make donations through there from anything from PayPal to Patreon, if you want to. Greatly appreciate it.
I imagine it's one of those cart before the horse things. Whenever you're talking about something like what you're doing, an effort towards, I don't know, what do we call it, like community, right? It's not like one company or one range or anything is profiting from it, but still, it takes kind of the ball to get rolling, right? So I'm assuming once you've got the nonprofit up and running and it's established, uh, and then companies can go, oh, okay, I see these other companies doing it. Then they'll all jump. It'll
Hmm.
be easier and easier for them to jump
Well,
on board. So it's
the
kind of like
the good part
putting a couple of bucks in the tip jar, right?
the good part about my procrastination of getting this started, because I've been doing it for 10 years, is I've been going to trade shows. I've been having conversations. I know the people at these companies now because I've talked to them for a decade, begging for stuff. Some gave stuff, some didn't. But I just, one, wasn't rude, and two, stayed in their face at least once a year minimum, but usually 2 to 3 times at trade shows like Great American Outdoor Show, NRA, SHOT Show, and even Goals down in Knoxville, and establish relationships with them to know I'm serious and they can look at my body of work. So that's the good part. Once their charity part starts and I have the federal number and the state number, well, now this is where the rubber meets the road. How are we going to set this up? What, talk to the companies and ask how can we help them and how can they help us? And then just strategize a campaign to make it more efficient, because there's some things I can no longer do after I become a charitable organization, for money raising, for fundraising, because ammo isn't free. Food that we serve at the event isn't free. And me going back and forth and going to these ranges and setting up. And I mean, even targets at the ranges, some of the ranges charge. And I can't be too much of an ass, about them charging for targets, because they're not charging me for the classroom. And that's in Jersey, where we have concealed carry, and they pretty much fill a classroom up every day, because there's so many people wanting to get carry permits. In less than in the 2 years we've had legal carry permits in this state, we have over 50,000 carry permits issued. So almost every range is packed with people trying to get their permits because it's all new. And these ranges are giving up that classroom time on a Thursday for the diversity shoot. Some 3 times a year, some six, eight, 10 times a year. So I appreciate it.
Well, the same way you have things like you'll have your hands tied to some ways that you can't do things. You'll also have your hands
Hmm.
untied on ways that you can do things, right?
Yeah, like I can actually apply and get grants from the federal government because of the work I do. That's a good thing. Um, I mean, you have to apply, you have to write, and I have, again, because I've done the work, established friendships with people that'll help me write the grants to try to get funding. Um, I can work with places like NRA, with friends of the NRA. Work with them. I've been talking about that and finding out what's involved in working with them, and I'd much rather just do it on my own, because friends of NRA are groups that work all year long, selling stuff, working their butts off to raise funds, and then at the end of the year, what they try to do is they recover some of the money they raise to help pay for what they do. You understand what I mean?
Sure. Sort of like
Yeah,
collaborating.
yeah. You
They
collaborate with
help
them,
you help them out.
and then you hope for a piece of the action. And I'm like, I'd rather do the work for myself. Um, not because I don't want to work with anybody else, but it's like I don't want to fail to come through. What if I don't raise anything? What if I don't have a huge percentage? And it's like, let's just do this Let's just do this on our own, raise money, see how that works out first. So that's how I'm looking at that. I have podcasts that I'm on. I'm a good guest for most people, so they don't mind having me on. And then, at the end of it, I can send people to a website and they can actually. Oh, and I'm going to work on what you call it too, merchandise, because people love merch. So I'll sell that too, and that should help.
Leaving you hanging there. So I'm trying to open up. There may not have been any questions come in live here, so I'm opening up the spreadsheet where the questions that come into the website go, so we
Mm,
can actually pull some of those again. So we do this probably every once a month at least, I think, but maybe not even that
mm.
often. But we do have one in here. After
Oh,
Browning, who is the greatest gun designer? And then they offer
you,
Colt, Kalashnikov, Stoner, and why?
see, they and I can't argue with any of those names, um, because they're great. But they left off one of the designers. Actually, two more, three more. Jeez. Um, they left off Glock. They left off George Kelvin. Uh, they left off. Damn, it was right there. Oh, I'm sorry. That's because I can't pronounce his name. Whoever it was that John Browning worked with to develop the Browning High Power. I cannot.
I thought it was
I
his
know
son.
he's Belgian. No,
Oh,
nope. It was a Belgian. But that was also the guy that developed the FAL.
oh, okay. I know who you're
So
talking about.
yeah, so it's like no. There's a few, and there's a long list. Okay, his name is. Oh wow, yeah, that's why. That's why I can't even
Blake
pronounce his
or
name.
something. So look at an S. Is
Gil
it?
Don
Oh,
Joseph. His last name is Saive.
oh,
Savy. Yeah, he is Belgium. He died. Wow, he died in 1970, a month before I was born. Um, yeah, so it's guys like that, and I don't know. I mean, because how do you measure 'em? John Moses Browning had a crap ton of designs, but so does George Kelgren. Galot came out with one, but it was so prolific. It was a significant number of law enforcement around the planet and the military use it. Eugene Stoner. I mean, we got three rifles designed by Eugene Stoner and Sullivan, his partner, which helped develop at least two of them, which is the AR-10 and the M16 AR-15, were two dudes. And people never talk about Sullivan, who went on to develop other firearms too. So there were a lot of them, man, and a crap ton of them were American, or at least lived in America, which I think is cool. So do I have one? Hey, I was in the Marine Corps, bro. I'm going with the Marine, Eugene Stoner.
I get that. Um, so I don't disagree. There's a lot of different gun designers out there that are all interesting or significant or both, right? When I
Hmm.
did deck, I first sat down to think, oh, is there going to be even 52 designers? And then I ended up with the answer is yes. There's way more than 52, hundreds. So when I ended up, I probably got down to where I could do two decks. If you start to think, like where do you count like who gets on the deck type of thing? Like how do you count who's deck worthy?
Hmm.
If you use the qualification of they made or they have a service rifle, something that's in service, or actually a service firearm, you still have over two decks because think of how many countries there are that have
Hmm.
firearms. Yeah, all the countries have firearms and they have multiple ones. So there's going to be firearms inventors for each country for bolt action, for semi auto, maybe even for machine gun separately or something. And then maybe multiples. And then pistols and then shotguns and revolvers often have different inventors. But just keeping it with Colt, Kalashnikov, and Stoner. Kalashnikov, as much as I like the AK, he invented a rifle or two, and he did that in a circumstance that was totally different than what Browning. Browning was had no there's no reason for Browning to do it except for World War II and World War One, I guess. But he was a gun designer in had set completely separate. He wasn't working for the War Department. He wasn't just an inventor who was tasked with making guns. He was an inventor who made guns since he was a little kid, and he brought us from guns that were single shot guns, so bolt actions and things. He invented the lever, and then the full auto, and then the semi auto, and pumps and everything else. So pretty much all the guns that we even have, he had a big hand in. And then
Hmm.
he, except for maybe the Gatling gun, like pretty much all the guns come from his. So he at least put the ideas on the table. And then when you consider all the stuff that Winchester bought from him, just so that other people couldn't have it, in other
Hmm.
words, stuff that never even saw the light of day, I can't even imagine how much stuff that guy did. He was doing it at a time that was pretty interesting, but again, he had two wars, so he had the money and the reason to, he's trying to stop wars. So like a lot of people who make machine guns and stuff, they're trying to make wars stop quicker. So he had some reason to do it. Where Colt, uh, when he was inventing, it was a different. Was it a different time? I guess it was a similar
Hmm.
time, but Colt was a different person for sure. He's significant in the same way I think you were talking about, like Glock being significant. The way that Colt
Hmm.
revolutionized the guns from basically taking us from a handheld gun that could shoot one to a practical production model of a handheld gun that could shoot many. And at the time, he might as well have made a Kalashnikov because you could shoot six times. Everybody else is shooting once. So, you
Hmm.
definitely have the advantage. Colt then, even though the guy only invented a gun or two, the company did a lot. So the guy himself only invented a gun or two. So I got to go with you, Stoner. I mean, he took he was an engineer who took materials from airplanes, stuff that we had been developing as a country to make lightweight, strong materials for airplanes. Took that technology and applied it to firearms. Again, without any, he wasn't. I'm trying to think of the beginnings of it. He was just a guy. He just sure his guns got sold to the military, but he wasn't working under military contract or anything. Like he
Hmm.
worked with the military once they got in there, but when he invented the thing, he was just thinking modular gun using materials that haven't been used before in a way that, build a gun kind of in pieces or in, what would you say, like in, what's the word? Like in compartments, like can compartmentalize the gun. So like a barrel, which does one job, is
Hmm.
a separate piece of the gun. The receiver, which does some stuff, is a separate piece of the gun. The trigger, where other guns, they just kind of evolved this stuff as one big machine with these different elements. He gave us the modularity that we just all take for granted again. So I think Stoner
Oh,
for sure, hands
100%.
down, right?
Yeah, because
Material,
I just,
type of gun, and then the guns itself, like Stoner.
oh, I just looked it up, and there was stuff that I totally forget about. And I don't know why, because one of the coolest guns, actually, it was like cool gun, cool gun, cool gun, cool gun. Um, One of the first ones, I think, even before the AR-10, was the AR-5 survival rifle, and I think that still lives on as the Henry.
Yeah,
That
that's the
that
metal one, right? Or is that the one with the
uh,
plastic? That's the AR. Is
That's
that
the
the
one with the plastic.
M7?
Yeah, it's the one with the plastic. The AR,
Yeah.
the survival rifle by Henry, is actually was designed by Eugene Stoner. He
Yep.
called it the AR-5, and the Air Force adopted it. Then, of course, is the AR-10, which everybody knows about. Is the AR-15 or the M16, which later became the M16, but that was him also. So we all good with that, right? But then you forget, after he sold the AR-15, or after the sale went to Colt, and Colt was producing the AR-15. He came around and produced the AR-18, which was a less expensive way to toss those same 5.56 rounds downrange, to be done in countries with that use stampings instead of using aluminum and milling it. And then he came out with that Navy SEAL freaking Stoner 63. Talk about modular. I think it could be like four different types of rifles. It could be belt
Yep.
fed. Yeah, yeah. It's like four. It could be a light machine gun, a carbine, a submachine gun,
Well,
and a
that also
medium
means
machine
that your armorer only has to have a certain amount of, or you can just have a bunch of
gun.
subcomponents. Anybody's guns that goes down, he's dealing with much fewer moving parts. supply lines, much fewer moving parts. So it just makes war more practical. Well, if that's
So
the right word,
then,
but
because
easier.
yeah, well then I didn't know this because I found it in Wikipedia when he went and co-founded Ares Incorporated. They came up with the Ares light machine gun, sometimes called the Stoner 86, which is an evolved version of the 63. I didn't even know about that one. I've probably seen it because I've been reading magazines since I was a kid, but I didn't know Eugene Stoner started that. And then I know he went to work with Knight's Armament and they came up with the SR-25. So all of that was Eugene Stoner,
And the
one dude.
SR-25 is like that epic poster with the rifle in the center and all those things that you can attach to it or add to it to modify it and adjust it and make it a different, where,
Well, it was what the
fantastic trophy.
military adopted after the M14 as a designated marksmanship rifle, sniper's rifle. Took us through the freaking global war on terror. Like it was all of that. So yeah, it's crazy.
Now, it's
It is
cool is
crazy,
when
but
I was doing the museum research, and one of the reasons
nice.
I wanted to even do the museum research is because I knew about stuff like this. But back in the day when you go to shot, you couldn't go you could go to the Knights booth, but you couldn't go take a camera out. You couldn't take pictures at the Knights booth for all kinds of reasons. And it wasn't like that exclusively at the Knights booth, but in the
Hmm.
beginning of my experience at SHOT Show in 2005, like you couldn't take pictures almost anywhere. You had to kind of know everybody or eventually get to be able to take pictures. By about 2015, you could take pictures anywhere, except Knights is one of those companies that kept shy away from cameras. Nowadays, you can go take pictures there. They don't care because the concerns are
Hmm.
gone, I guess. But um, whenever those days where I would, look at the stuff and whatever, I was interested in it casually because I'm not that big of a fan of AKs, but I do like history and the knowledge of like you're saying, the Stoner work there and stuff. Well, it turns out that the guy at Knights, working with Stoner or whatever, ended up acquiring all of the prototypes. So Knights has their own museum, and they've got like pretty much all the stuff from Armalite that could be acquired that wasn't auctioned off or sold off otherwise. So they have the majority, as far as I'm aware, unless something's changed, a majority of the original Armalite stuff, and that includes like you hear about like the prototypes in Russia because the state kept, I guess, the stuff. So it was possible for people to go back in the museums to show the beginning prototypes of the AK. Same thing with the Stoner. The military didn't do it, but Stoner kept all that stuff, or Armalite kept all that stuff, I guess. And when, like you say, Knights eventually acquired it, they didn't just throw that stuff away or sell it. They have a museum there, and I just think that's cool as hell. That since that is a significant firearm, that piece of its history is still there. That still exists. I think it's a private museum. I don't think it's open to the public, but the fact that it's still there is cool.
Yeah, I do too. I mean, look, whatever. I mean, there's a lot of museums around. Check your local museum because I did not know there was one here in Trenton. They have a museum, military museum that's in the National Guard Armory. So I went there because I used to have Mondays off. And what I did with Mondays, which is hilarious, this freaking nerd. What I would do on Mondays was spend the morning, part of the morning, right after 9, up until like 12 or 1, cold calling companies to try to get them to support the work we do here. Go eat and then go out and do some stuff if I could. And one of the things I did was went and visit the New Jersey Armory, that National Guard Armory, and they had Vietnam era stuff. But one of the coolest things they had, I don't know if you remember this, it was almost like Franklin, was it the Franklin Mint collector plates? But gun magazines used to have, remember they had an M16 commemorative, like they would do commemorative guns too, firearms. And it
And
was like an
Knights.
M16, yeah, with Vietnam stuff on it. No, it wasn't the Knights, but it was a Colt AR M16.
Oh no, no, I'm saying like they do knives every once in a while too, like that instead of
Oh yeah,
plates.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
But like they
Yep.
paint the gun, or yeah, I think it was paint. I don't think it was. They didn't have like all the fancy stuff they have now, right? They just painted them, or maybe they engraved
Well,
them a little bit.
yeah, they engraved them with gold. They had the gold print, and then like black enamel. So one of them they have is a Vietnam era. I mean, not Vietnam era, but one dedicated to commemorated. That's it, a Vietnam commemorative AR. But it was looked just like a M16. It had all the teardrop, everything, but it was like that shiny black that Sig uses for the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier, or the Reserve. Yep, you could look it up with the Sig P2. Damn, why am I freaking vapor locking? What's the P320? That's it. The P320 the Sig Reserve, the P226 Reserve. It had that shiny coating, and then it had gold like scenes from Vietnam. It had the gold Vietnam uh, service medal. It had that in gold on the side. It was really cool because, being the geek I am, I was like, yo, I know that. And of course, the museum's dead ass empty. You just walk in, like no one's there. I'm like, this is
Oh, you're saying that the
nuts.
museum had that commemorative rifle at
Yes,
one of them. Oh,
the
that's cool.
museum had the commemorative rifle. They had like a M79 grenade launcher. They had that commemorative rifle. They had a 1911. Like they had firearms from Vietnam era. But I'm like, no one's even in here. Like this is
Yeah, the Navy has
cool.
a museum. I've been to it. No, I've been to the Navy Museum in Annapolis. I don't know if there's other museums. There, I mean, I shouldn't say that. There probably are other museums. I haven't been to the other ones. So I know there's a Navy SEAL museum in Florida, and then the Marines. You guys have, is it Quantico? You guys have a small
Hmm.
arms museum that the
Dude.
last couple of times I've been in DC, Obama shut them down
Hmm.
for federal funding or whatever, which I get. Like you say, nobody ever goes to them anyway. So, but at least he didn't just, delete them. He just turned them off. But and I think hopefully they're turned back on now because it's not like they got rid of
Oh
the museum.
no,
But
you haven't seen it? The Marine Corps
no,
Museum,
no,
the
I
new.
wanted to go when I was doing the tours, and that was one of my reasons to drive around and do the tours. Except that, like I say, for money reasons, they shut off most of the military museums when I was driving around. It was like 18 and 19, and it was just a cost thing.
Yeah.
Or maybe it was a political thing, like they figure that's going to bother Republicans or something, so they were doing it. But I don't really care. Whatever the reasons were, they did it. But so I just missed it. Is all I'm saying. I was there a couple of
Mm.
times to see it, and I just missed it. But I was going to just say that the way the Army does it, and it's a factor of the Army's bigger than everybody, except maybe the Navy. The Navy might do it this way, but I know that the Army does it this way because I did the research and I found a book that has a list. But not quite every fort and post, but almost every fort and post is responsible for their own museum because they all have their
Mm.
own histories and their own units and stuff. And because units go around and do stuff, so units keep track of their own history to some extent. All the forts and posts, though, are kind of responsible for their own, which means there's like 137 army museums, and it's some of them are just like a little corner of the one room or something, or like they kept a barrack the way it was, and then like here in Fort Huachuca, it's maybe it is an old barrack. Honestly, I really don't know. It's an old building. They devote a building to it, but it's because they've done a lot of stuff at Fort Huachuca. It's just got a lot of different stuff. I mean, that fort's been around since the olden days, since the beginning of the Indian Wars. So the westward expansion and all that shit. So it's old and it's neat because I'm assuming each one, like that's a job in the army, is army historian or army museum person, or there's probably like 10 jobs in the army for being in the museum. So they attract people that know what they're doing, or at least the job knows what it's doing. So like the actual artifacts from here in Arizona, all that stuff is in a very, very dark room. And it's all humidity and climate controlled and everything so that the leather and the cloth and stuff doesn't disappear or, disintegrate any more than it already has. So it's kind of interesting to walk around our museums, or at least the one out here, because it's so dark. I know other museums have been like that, though, are the ones that have real artifacts on display because they know how much all the, just keeping a room lit up and air conditioning and everything destroys everything over time. So they'll kind of, it's like walking through the dark towards little spotlights of interest, and it's an experience. But anyway, I don't know how many of the army museums I've been to, but whenever I'm somewhere and I'm bored, I do the same. I think is what you were trying to talk about is check them out because they're usually run by people who totally dig it. Nobody gets drafted to be in an army museum. Like you totally volunteer for that, and you probably dig it. Like it's probably one of those jobs where you just take it as a job. It's probably not something where you get assigned. I think I don't know. But they tend to be more than happy to be tour guides and walk around. And unless it's like a day when the local school has a tour or something, you're going to probably have them to yourself, right? Like you're going to have the whole museum to check out. It's pretty neat. I don't know if they're going to open stuff up or not, but you know what I'm saying? Like it's that kind of, it seems like it's that kind of experience. Like, hey, can I see this a little closer or could you show me this, how it works or something?
Yeah,
Um,
I don't. Yeah, I like the museum thing, and anytime I go, I feel like, I mean, it has to be a pretty sad museum for me to walk out. You know what I mean? Like for me to go, yeah, that sucked.
yeah, that's a good point because I've been to some that weren't anything that I'm interested in, but it's still interesting. Does that make sense? Like I'm still
Hmm.
happy to see that. Like I've been to train museums. I'm not gonna say I got dragged to them because I've gone to them on my own. Because there's some ones between here and California that like I say, I'm really not all that interested in the trains or whatever. But it is interesting to see that they're still uh, all kept for those people who are going to be interested in the trains. I think that's one of the features of our country that I know Europe and stuff is really good at keeping their whatever, uh, where keeping their history if it hasn't burned down or whatever. And some other countries, I guess, that are uh, older have got some of their history. But since we're kind of a new country, I think that it's most of our history is like a couple of generations old. So it's just neat that I think our history is pretty neat. I guess as we have a big country, so there's a lot of our history too. Maybe it's because
Yeah,
we do stuff a little differently. I guess we've had the opportunity to leave all these other countries and do stuff our own way. So our history is a little different. Maybe we're the first of the countries to start doing it our own way. I don't know. It's easy to say, I guess.
well, we have I don't know, dude. I mean, I one part that frustrates me about how Americans, treat America is like we're less than or something. I'm like, you know, we're unique, right? We're very unique because we've brought all these people together without like continuous wars within our own border to make these people assimilate or to force a religion upon them. I mean, outside of obviously, conquering the nation with wars with Native Americans. Not like they have all over Europe, the Middle East, and other parts of the world where they were forced other people's religions on them, like through just years of wars. It's like, no, we don't care. I mean, eventually we got to the point that we were like, no, we don't care where you are.
I think
And
it's a
we're,
generality for sure, right? Like we don't care. Like there's the it's a big place in the swirl, right? So there's going to be some areas where people have a fit about outsiders or something or whatever. There's going to be some friction and things, but I think in
hmm
general we trend towards everybody's chill. And but like you say, except for people who were taken here forcefully, everybody decided to leave here, and most people were either like, "Hey, let's go make money there," like land of opportunity type of thing, or "I hate it here. That place has got to be better than here." So we've got a lot of people that came here with that, kind of not similar mindset, but with that mindset of I'm starting over, or I'm starting fresh, or I'm starting my own thing.
and we're not going to
And
drag
it
all the
still
other
happens.
bullcrap with us. Yeah.
And it's not like you're saying, like I think what you're saying is like some of those countries, at least the ones I'm thinking of, is like France or something, where I don't remember how France's history goes, but I'm sure it was like one king comes along and takes it, and then some barbarians kick the shit out of the king or something, and some queen takes it, then Napoleon takes it, and then Hitler takes it, and then they join, whatever. Like we don't have that kind of history. We pretty much,
Hmm.
like you say, except for actually here. Let's talk about this. You mentioned I think it was just last week. You mentioned did we do this online? Or I think DJ said we did talk about this live. But you brought up that channel about Rogers Raiders.
Hmm.
Rogers Rangers, and
Rangers, yeah.
Robert Rogers. Too many fucking R's. Robert Rogers Rangers, right? Something like that. And
Yeah.
but what it was fucking epic. So I went. I was doing some driving, so I downloaded the first couple episodes onto audio and listened to them while I was driving. And if I remember it right, I might have listened to him in the wrong order, but he starts off talking about the unit, which is our first special operations unit, and that by all means, right, by definition or whatever. And then the second episode, he says, "Let me take a second and talk about the war that we're talking about, the French and Indian War." And I've heard of it, but honestly, I don't. I mean, there's no way I've got like a photographic memory. I'm not Mr. Brainiac, so whatever I learned in school about history, I only knew long enough to pass whatever tests. My When I was a kid, we went to all the different Civil War battlefields and probably a bunch of the Revolutionary War battlefields in a camper. So we drove all around going to these places, and I'm sure I've stepped foot in many of them. And every once in a while, when I see something on TV, I can remember, oh yeah, I've been there. I'm pretty sure I've been there, right? But as a little kid, being dragged and being awake, I guess, but not really paying attention, not absorbing it for sure. But at least I've got an idea of how big the fucking country is and how many of these battlefields and how diverse the battlefields are. Because some of them are in towns, literally, and some of them are in the middle of nowhere and everything else. But anyway, I never paid attention to anything as far as history, like trying to keep track of what years and stuff until very recently when I've been doing the gun cards and the gun, the history stuff that I've been doing recently with guns. I've sort of started putting it together, but that first couple of episodes, he brought together the French and Indian War in a way that I never even thought about it or heard about it described, or at least
Hmm.
if I did, I never absorbed it. Well, essentially, he said that war of the 6 Years War, I think it was called, was
Hmm.
essentially really World War One, because most people would consider a war on multiple continents, with the superpowers that last for multiple years, a world war. But we didn't call it World War One; we called it the 6 Years War. And the campaign between England and France, one of the campaigns between England and France happened in North America, and that was the French and Indian War. And what that really was us before the Revolutionary War, 10 years before the Revolutionary War. So us as an English colony, so kind of not really us, but the people who were here before us, I guess, as an English colony, and the natives who they were hanging out with or helping or cool with, and then the French who are up in Canada and the natives that they were cool with teamed up and started fighting the shit out of each other. And we're down here as sort of English, whatever that was, or at least colonies. I don't think we're all English. Like, we were just a bunch of colonies. But the English ones were fighting the French ones, from what I understand. And this happened for a number of years. And this is where we learned guerrilla tactics, basically learning how the natives fought, right? Using some of their tactics. And then it was just bloody as shit. Like, they were horrible. Like, there was some horrible shit that happened in that war. So they talk about the movie The Patriot, or I've heard people talk about the movie The Patriot being about this. And I never really put two and two together and how it makes sense. So when the Revolutionary War happens, not I've talked about before, because I know about the idea that we had German and English and other types of firearms mixed together, and our guns were better than the rest of the world's guns because we mixed all the guns together and had the best of all worlds. Everybody else had their specific guns, and that's one of the reasons we kicked everybody's ass. Another reason we kicked everybody's ass is our tactics, and that's because we knew how heinous war could be, and we just fucking ended it. Like, we did stuff that was necessary to end wars, which essentially is marksmanship, shooting at targets in between actual fighting, so that when the fighting happens, you can shoot people in the head instead of just shooting at them, and you end the war. And it stops wars from happening because nobody wants to fight you anymore when you just kill them. And that was a really neat thing that we don't talk about, the American Revolution. Like, we started and changed so many things in the world. Back in the day, generals and kings and shit didn't give a fuck about people. So the wars of attrition, go line all these people up in bright colors so we can see them from the hill over here, and start telling them to kill each other until we're done. Like, we decide who the winners are. Like, it was that kind of shit. And we said, no, let's stop all that. Like, let's just end that, and let's end wars quick. And we just did that by being good. Anyway, so that podcast was epic, and I kind of think it relates to like a lot of stuff we've actually talked about over the years. That one of the reasons we're the country we are is a high. Is it the way to say hybridization of tactics and techniques and tools from all over the world, and a bunch of
Yeah, I
people who
mean,
were pissed for different reasons, who all stood back to back, pissed from different reasons, and said, "Let's all be friends and fight off the rest of the fucking world." There's a bunch of jerks.
yeah, that was. I mean, I enjoyed it. I went back and was reading. I mean, not reading. Geez, watching because I actually wanted to hear about the raid itself. So I was listening because these are long shows, and he broke them down, which was pretty cool. I want to see his other stuff. But yeah, we were different. Rogers Rangers were different. Um, Sad part, like the military in almost every war we go into, and which we're going to do yet again, and I'm watching it happen, they continually have to learn the same lessons over and over and over again. And you can see that. And finally, when the Ranger Regiment was established, and this is after World War II, after you showed that this thing works, right? All around the world, they formed Ranger regiments, Ranger battalions, and whatnot around the world during World War II, and still got rid of it after World War II ended. And they had to start it up again with Korea. And then when they went to Vietnam, they only had one Ranger battalion in Georgia, but they didn't deploy Rangers to Vietnam. But they came up with Recondo School, which is, again, Rangers, Long Range Reconnaissance Patrol, Rangers. Uh, it was ridiculous, right? They keep having to learn the same thing over and over, but it's something that other countries didn't do until, again, post World War II, actually after Vietnam, because we showed how it could be used during conventional war in World War II. We showed how it could be used in small scale war, Korea, and then we showed again how it could be used in unconventional warfare during Vietnam. So it was a proven concept and just had to keep coming back. But we were on the cutting edge of a lot of it. Hell, the Vietnamese copied us and came out with their own version of long range reconnaissance patrol to try to counter the work we were doing. If you ever want to read it, there's a couple of books. There's actually like three books by one guy who was a ranger doing Vietnam. One of them, he did the ranger history, like actual all rangers history, and then he did long range reconnaissance patrol history. And he did a third one. I forgot what it was, but I read all of his books while before I joined the Corps, while I was in. So these are some older paperback books that I got, but I'm sure they're in hardcover too. Really worth reading if you're a nerd like that and you want to hear, because he didn't tell it from his perspective. He told it as a historian. And the only one story he talked about was working as a him. Only one story was about him when they used to send rangers through what they called when they taught them how to use mules for the mountain part of ranger school. And they, they said, listen, as long as you don't make eye contact with the mule won't figure out that he's smarter than you are. So whatever you do, don't make eye contact with the mule. He made eye contact with the mule. The mule looked at him and just ran off and left him. It was like, yeah, that's what I thought. I'm out. Peace. Pew! He had to chase the mule down and try to make it come back. It was a great story because I didn't even expect it the way he wrote. But he was like, yeah, only one guy had a problem. It was me. So it's pretty cool. But again, America's unique. I love my country. I'm unabashedly pro American citizen and the good things we do.
You're talking about those books. I remember reading. Well, I listened to a book on tape. I think when I was driving back and forth across the country, and
Hmm.
I can't remember what it was called. I want to say it was called Recondo, but it might not have been. And it was about a guy who did long range recon in Vietnam.
Hmm. Yep, read
And
it.
it was it called Recondo?
There was one called Recondo. Yeah.
But that was really eye opening. I had no idea about even the job. It was really interesting. I don't think I would want to do it, but I ended up knowing a guy who did forward observation for weather and
Hmm.
similar, but not as not the recon part of it. I guess it's reconning the weather, so you have to get up there and kind of probe. But so part of it was similar, but not the potential fight. Well, I guess the potential fighting's always there, but a little bit more potential fighting when you're going up and walking into their perimeters and shit and poking them and stuff like that, and getting stuff. But that all comes back to what the guy was talking about with those original. I don't know if it was tasks or if just things he was able to do, like uh,
Hmm.
things that Rogers was able to do, like go out and get troop movements and counts and things as a group of five dudes and come back, and no one would believe them. The generals
Hmm.
and stuff would be like, no, until we have confirmation from many more people, we're not going to believe that five people could go do this. You're just making shit up. And again, that's the kind of shit that once I mean, I get the impression I might have just thought this, or if he said it, I can't remember. That the generals, after enough time, were like, okay, we figured out that this guy can do this. We don't have to send out, we don't have to do it the old way. We can do this with much fewer people sometimes, and
Well,
capable
then,
people.
no. See, one of the annoying parts about that when you listen about the generals of the day was they weren't generals because they were awesome at leading troops. They had political pull or they were able to recruit because that's what they based a lot of your rank on, how many people you could recruit. And if you could recruit 120 people, well, then you were a captain. You know what I mean? Like you, you ran your own, that was your company that you put together or whatever. So that's what that was based on. But if you had political connections, you could get funding, and then all of a sudden you can get higher rank. Rogers didn't have any connections other than his ability to recruit people to fight by his side. Because what he was doing, he was a mountain man kind of dude who lived on the edge and who went out and did this kind of stuff. Um, and he knew the guys that did it, and he knew where you could go to find them. Because it's not like they hung around in the cities. These guys lived on the edge of the wilderness and they got together and they knew about each other. And he was one of those guys. So he was able to recruit people and fight and get them back alive. And he cared about them because they weren't disposable because they were highly skilled. And they said he had an operational tempo that would that would meet today's standards of some of the busiest units.
Well,
And they
units that
walked
have
out.
like, yeah, but they would have helicopters and they'd have physical therapists and doctors and all the top stuff, right? And back then it was
Yep.
again leather, brass, steel, and water, and yeah, you're walking.
You're walking, buddy. You're walking everywhere, or you're taking a
But
boat, and then
and it sounded
go ahead,
like
man.
these guys walked without boots because they'd rather walk moccasins
Hmm.
or barefoot. And so these guys were pretty tough. Like you said, they were people that grew up tough or grew up rural, whatever you want to call, like non-urban back in the day. And
Hmm.
right, you couldn't conscript or recruit. You could get people that wanted to do it, but you couldn't get people who were capable of doing it. But he was, because he, like you say, came from that. And it's interesting. And again, I mean, all of that is still core American value kind of stuff, right? Like, or American
Hmm.
ethic, something like that's kind of the, uh, I don't know, the stuff that we all value, I think. Um, anyway, I highly recommend checking that uh, stuff out. The guy, what do you think is the deal? Did he script all that and he's just got a teleprompter and he's reading it? Or did he just has a comprehensive knowledge of the subject and he's just really good at describing it, or is he like an instructor or teacher or something that said it over and over? Because there's no ums and he doesn't think about nothing. But it's also not just he's not reading. You know what I mean? He's not just reading a book or whatever,
Yeah, I think he has it scripted, but not reading the script.
like
Um,
bullet points, and he
he,
just knows enough about it that he can flow it through, not forget anything.
and he just flows through, and I think there's probably also editing because he's not continually showing himself on the screen, but he is showing himself.
Oh, okay.
Uh,
I'm listening to it. I was only listening, so I didn't
okay.
even. Okay.
Yeah, so every now and again he'll cut over to historical uh, photos. That's about
Or
it,
like
though. So,
paintings and maps and shit.
yep, yep, paintings and maps, and it's really if you want to get into the. I keep saying nerd because it is. I mean, you have to really be into it if you want to check it out. But I think it's worthwhile if you are, and even if you aren't, to find out what it was really like through someone that's interesting. Like he paints it well, and he also, because he was special operations, he can compare it to today to make it relevant to how they do things today. And he's like, without the equipment, he was like, think about it, these people had no training. They lived that lifestyle. And I don't know if people know this, but the Rangers today, or at least, okay, the reason I know about Rangers and lightweight infantry is because I got really into it because I was in junior ROTC when the Army in the mid to late 80s made it a priority to build these light infantry units. That's what they wanted to do. So they were putting out a lot of that. They had the 10th, they had the 25th, they had the infantry companies around the country, and they were pushing that. And one of the things they had was Rogers rules, and it was the rules that he used then. Again, pre-Revolutionary War, and they had them written down because he wrote the rules. And Rangers of that time period, again, mid to late 80s, were still using his rules. And I thought it was really cool because that's way back, bro. And this was a guy who never became a general. He wasn't seen as some kind of, I mean, truthfully, by the time the revolution came around, he was kind of forgotten. Like, it's not, I don't think, at least I don't think so. Don't put my word on, but I don't remember them talking about him doing other stuff during the revolution. Or maybe he still fought for the British. I don't know. Because that's who he was fighting for. It wasn't America, it was the British. But that was during the
And
7 Year War.
the 7 Year War, and it was, um, well, was he fighting as a? They weren't really fight. Didn't think of themselves as colonists. Then they just thought of themselves as the
Yeah,
English
but
people over here.
he wasn't an English regular. No, and that was one of the reasons. That was one of the problems with it. Uh, the British themselves saw him and all of his people as lesser than, and that's one of the reasons they didn't believe him because he was a colonist. He didn't go through proper British training because they were really impressed with themselves. The British were and their military. But meanwhile, they couldn't get anywhere near the French. They couldn't pull the missions off. He pulled off. So they just chose to dismiss him. And since I mean, that's one of the ways get rid of people. Instead of trashing their reputation, you just don't talk about it. And they disappear out of the history books. He said this particular raid on St. Francis, he said he had a history professor that specialized on the French and Indian War, and he didn't know about this raid. That's how little of it was in the history books of conventional what they study. That's ridiculous. And Rogers wrote about it. He wrote about the raid. Now, how crazy is that? The guy that was there wrote about it, and history teachers who study the French and Indian War didn't know about it.
All
But
right, so
I enjoy stuff like that.
I'm looking at
What's
the
up?
wiki, and it gets down to all of the shit he did during the French and Indian
Hmm.
War, and then went to England
Oh,
as
cool.
a author to capitalize on his fame, and then the King of England made him King George III, I guess, made him the
Hmm.
governor of Michigan. So he was the royal governor of Michigan for a while,
Hmm.
1792 or something, and then it says Rogers unfortunately offended his private secretary. Wait, somebody's private secretary, and that gave that person the right or the reason to uh, try Rogers for treason.
Hmm.
So he was the governor of Michigan for a bit, and then he got tried for treason in England. And then it says American Revolutionary War. Because of his legal troubles in England, Robert Rogers missed the major events in the colonies. He heard that the revolution was likely to break out and return to America in 1775. The Americans were as out of touch with Rogers as he was with him, looking at him as a noted Ranger leader and expecting him to behave as one. He was just a big drunk, I guess, uh,
Hmm.
suffering from alcoholism and lost all his money and his life, his land, and his friends. It says. So then it's
Yes.
unclear what happened, and he was arrested by somebody as a spy. He escaped the custody. I'm trying to skip ahead here, but I guess the army forcibly retired Rogers on the grounds of poor health in 1777, and he couldn't go back to England, so he just got married, and then his wife died. Man, he didn't have a happy life.
Again, exactly.
He
Again,
went to Canada,
for
so went to Canada later and then died.
like again, I said, forerunner of pretty much everything this American Special Forces today. Let me see. He fought the war. He was freaking epic at it. After the war was over, he was unappreciative, became an alcoholic. Family broke up, and died penniless. Again, that guy was the freaking premier special forces. They still do that all that stuff today. He even wrote a book. Same. They ought to be a freaking statue built to him in front of every special operations base around the world.
Pretty interesting. Let's see. So there's a couple of things named after him, and then like some islands and statues and things, and then islands. Did I say that? And then, like you say, he's in the Ranger Handbook now, and he's in the Rangers Hall of Fame as of 1992.
Hmm.
Oh, he was the inaugural inductee, so he was the first person to be inducted into their Hall of Fame in 1992.
Yeah, it should have been.
But yeah, I
That's
mean,
some awesome
that guy
stuff.
is interesting, but there's the whole evolution of like our country and the way that our countries and the stuff that being colonies, having like there was a people don't I don't know what people think about the indigenous folks that were here, but they had tribes. They had their own cultures that got along and clashed with
Hmm.
each other and did different things. So whenever different people showed up here, because we weren't the first, or at least the 13 colonies weren't the first, right? But they were the ones that I guess lasted the longest or stuck around or had support and grew. But all of that interaction and stuff was interesting as hell. And these are the individual stories, but it all makes up the whatever you want to call like the conclusion of what we've got here today. And were we talking about this, or was I think I was talking about this with somebody else? But somebody was talking about. I was listening to a thing talk about democracies, and our democracy has the three branches of government, and they're pretty much balanced because when we were created a country, England, we kicked England's ass, and they left us alone because we kicked their ass so soundly they didn't want to come back. But the democracies, democracies in Central and South America were from Spain, and Spain kept fucking with them. So their democracies tend to have much stronger executive branch than anything else. So they're kind of lopsided in our perspective of it because their executive branch needs to be able to take control of the military and fight Spain, or at least historically, over and over and over. And I just never nobody ever explained it that way. And it's just stuff like that is interesting. Once you start paying attention to history or listening to people who are historians, I guess. Um, I wish there was more like what's the word like translation, so that some of those key pieces and factors can be available when maybe some Schoolhouse Rock type of cartoons or something, just to throw some of the lessons from history out there, so that we don't forget the core pieces from some of these things that have happened.
Well, one of the guys I watch who's really good at the history thing, makes it interesting, is Fat Electrician, or the Fat Electrician. I don't know if you watch this stuff, but he does. He started doing long form about a year ago because he used to do shorts, and those were good. Well, he started doing long form, and now he just did like an hour or 40 minutes on Japanese American unit, the Nife, during World War II. And that was really like all of his stuff is really good, his long form stuff. And it's bringing up things like that, like the Japanese units, like just the different units that obscure the personalities of some of the people that you might have heard of in World War II or World War One or world history. And he kind of brings it alive and does a great job of doing it. The Fat Electrician is a really good channel to check out.
Interesting. Does he just do military stuff?
But let me think. I'm doing it off the top of my head. I think, yeah, mostly military stuff. He's former military. He was in the army, and he talks about that kind of thing because that's what he's into. But he's also one of the people behind crushing the Buffalo school system right now as part of the Unsub podcast.
Okay. When you said the electrician, that made me think of I'm a big fan of watching tech documentaries and stuff. And
Hmm.
one of them I stumbled across one time was the Fairchild. I forget what it was called. Something about Fairchild. And there's so the way that computers happened somewhere on the East Coast, I forget, IBM or somebody started them. And then
Hmm.
some engineers said, screw this, we're going to California. They went to California. That was Fairchild, and then a bunch of
Hmm.
there was a core group of people, and then those people split off into groups like two here, three here, and two here. And I forget what they call those, the Fairchild or whatever. Like anyway, so that's where Silicon Valley and everything started because the Fairchild went there, and then those other companies started, and that's just about when I think this was at the end of World War II. So that's just about when space travel started happening and all these contracts for space and basically the transistors. We started going from tubes to um, silicone, where we don't have to worry about vacuum tubes and fragile glass anymore, and it's just all integrated circuits and computer chips. So when that stuff was first invented and the different kind of major designs got established, all the subsequent companies needed to happen. All the people to make the components and do the next step in the thing, or to make the boards, or all the different little pieces. And that's where we see a boom in Silicon Valley. So I thought maybe it was something like that because that would be. I'm always interested in more and more stories that dig into the I don't know the less uh,
Oh,
obvious pieces of history that were all integral. Like if we didn't have all that, we would have never gotten to where those guys made so many extra chips that then they could figure out to make radios with all those extra chips real cheap. And now we had cheap radios because space needed perfect chips, and we had to make 1,000 chips to make one perfect chip.
no, he doesn't do the Fat Electrician doesn't do all military stuff. The last few have been military stuff. But he also did one on the founder of Little Caesars Pizza. That was a cool one.
Oh, that would
But
be
yeah,
super interesting.
many of
I know people from Little Caesars, so that would be super
yeah,
interesting.
yeah. He did that on Little Caesars. I'm scanning through it. He did stuff on Cassius Clay, the most gangster politician ever. Bat Bomb. He did 1 billion pounds of cheese. America's Secret Underground Cheese Bunkers. Yeah, this is some of his short form stuff. But he did Taco Bell. He did one on Taco Bell also. So it's really good stuff. I enjoy his content. Laugh my ass off. I have
Where have
no
I
idea
heard
why
of?
this isn't even
Where have I
where.
heard of the? Where no? Where have I heard of the Unsub podcast? Who's that?
Unsub Podcast is Brandon Herrera, Donut Operator,
Oh, okay.
Eli Double Tap. All those guys got together and started the Unsub Podcast. And one of the guys that are a regular recurring guest, I guess you'd call it, is Angry Cops. He has a YouTube channel. His last name is High. I think Richard High. He's a SVU detective out of Baltimore. And he went on the podcast and pretty much said the Baltimore school system is covering up uh, child assaults, sexual assaults, abductions of children or attempted abductions of children in the Buffalo school system. And he pretty much outed them. And instead of looking into it, even the local news uh, came at him. Well, luckily, because he was part of the Unsaw podcast and they have a lot of people, that particular episode got 1.5 million views. And they started getting phone calls from teachers in the Buffalo school system going, yeah, this is true, as almost a culture. They cover up things like that. And now you got a bunch of people interested. Even the news turned on him and tried to make him the story. And it didn't really work out well for him because they had so many fans. They got a bunch of pushback. And then a couple of actual investigative reporters came in and found out that, yeah, there was a lot of truth. Actually, everything they said was true. And because I guess the Buffalo Police Department and the chiefs and everybody are behind their officer who's been doing this as an SVU detective for a while, and they're frustrated with the cover ups by the school system, that they're clearing information for him to tell the public about how bad the Buffalo school system is. Over 17,000 calls have gone out to the police from the Buffalo school system. It averaged out to about 13 a day. And they try to cover it up. They actually had two children to be, someone attempted to kidnap two children or abduct two children at the school, went into the school, fought one of the principals, and they only charged him with a misdemeanor trespassing charge until this detective came out and named this specific case and pushed hard. Now all of a sudden he's, I think, charged with 3 or 4 felonies, including kidnapping, attempted kidnapping the children. But
Is
it
the
took
idea
a
that
dude on a
they're
podcast.
trying to cover it up
Hmm.
because of like complicity or like something, or is it just like ineptness
Oh,
and like incompetence type of
it,
thing?
no, it's the school system doing exactly, trying not to let itself look bad, and how it looks is more important to them than keeping kids safe. So it's a big cover up to try to make themselves look good. And it's ridiculous what they're going through when you can easily just use public, what do you call it? Something request, Freedom of Information Act request, and find out most of everything is in bullcrap.
Well, I'm going to change subjects since I can't do nothing about.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
no, I'm looking at the questions. Yeah, go ahead, man.
but we did get a question. What model of the Beretta 84 in 380 is best for CCW? Is it the F, FS, or BB? And I'm trying to, this is off the top of my head. I have no idea what any of that is. So F,
So I
FS,
actually,
and BB.
dude, they're all the same size. It's just the actions of it. So
Was
I
it like
don't know. I
hammers
mean,
are different or something?
I
Like
think
what?
it's like one, F, F, S, and BB. I think that's like,
This one looks
double
like the
action,
FS.
single double, that kind of thing. So it's just how you run it. Yeah, see, it doesn't look like it has a hammer. And which one is that?
This one is the FS. And then I'm trying
Okay.
to find a BB is this one. I don't know what the difference is. And then what was the other one? Just a plain old F.
F. Yeah.
Is that
They're all the
standard
same
model?
size.
Oh, here's an F.
Hmm. They change things
Oh,
like the
that's a
trigger.
BB.
Yeah. Look at the trigger housing. They changed those. But I mean, really?
Oh, that,
Beretta got the 80X out right now. So get that one. Get the new one. They have the 80X they just made available. Um, Gerson has their own version of this also.
yeah, it looks like the trigger guard is like super rigid or strong or whatever you want to call it on the
Hmm.
FS model. And then on the BB model, do I have two of the same models up here? No, on the BB model, it's more the old style. I'm going to call it flimsy trigger guard.
Mm,
I don't know. The sight's different. The sights are kind of smooth on the BB, and their target sights on the FS. So it looks like the FS is probably for a holster, and the BB would be for your uh, concealed carry. Like, well, I guess I should say this is for like your outside the waistband holster. And this would be like you're inside the waistband.
Oh, I'm sorry.
But I'm just going off the
EOA.
two pictures.
Yeah, so I've been looking at this for a while because we actually had it on the show. And there's a couple of people that pulled these old ones up. I forgot who it was. It might have been the guys over at, dang, Ammo, Lucky Gunner. Lucky Gunner had something like that on, and they were talking about it. But Gerson has one that's called the MC14T, and it's their version of the same thing. 380 small, small 380s that pretty much can fit an adult hand. I have no problem with it. I don't think there's a problem with most 380 ammo. Understand it's going to be shot placement. It's more important. You know, no one's going to be picked up and thrown down the aisle by freaking 380 rounds. Just like no one's getting picked up and thrown down the aisle when you shoot them. You know, when you're trying to protect yourself or save yourself from a active shooter or anybody else, it's all going to be about shot placement. But it's definitely going to be so if you use these firearms because it uses 380, which is a 9 millimeter short. But if it
And
gets you to
plenty of gun.
carry it,
And plenty of gun because it's not so small that it's trying to be like, let's take 5 rounds of 380 and wrap the smallest thing possible around them. This is, let's take a gun that fits a hand, put
yep,
380 in it, and then, well, I guess they make about 6 different models, it looks like, as far as like hammers and triggers
hmm
and whatever the features we've just been talking about. But that makes sense,
yep.
I guess.
Now, I like it because I listen to a lot of these tactical Timmies and they annoy the heck out of me. They're like, well, if you're using a gun that big, why don't you use nine? It's called recoil, dude. It calls turning from a fun shooting gun into a gun you have to suffer through. Well, no one really wants to do that. Everybody talks a good game, but no one wants to fight their pistol every time they take it to the range because, oh man, this sucks. It's going to hurt. Trust me, as much as I like shooting guns, when I had my 1911 World War II edition 1911, and that hammer would shoot my hand, it sucked some of the fun out of it. It's like getting attacked by a small dog every time I pull the trigger. So yeah, I'm not one of those people that are in love with the old school slab sided M1911. I want mine updated with at least a beaver tail and a spur hammer, not a spur hammer, but a rounded hammer.
Well, it took a long time to find a picture of an F, but I can't. I guess maybe the F is kind of a middle between the two.
Mm, I don't remember. I've read stuff. Oh, and James Reeves, I think he did a thing over at what is it, TFB? He was talking about them too.
We got Trigger
Seems
Alex
like the
listening
industry
to us
goes,
from California out there. Welcome.
oh, hey, my boy, Simplify, homie, one of us.
I was listening to Ed's Manifesto guy, Ed Calderon, I think his name. I was listening
hmm
to his podcast, and he's like, I don't know if I'm blessed or if I'm cursed, but I've got a lot of Marines in my life. And I was sitting there thinking, like, dang, I think I know more Marines than I know Army right now.
Well, we won't shut up telling you about it.
I guess that's the thing. That's the thing for sure.
Yeah, it's like if you meet a guy and he's a vegan, a Marine, and does CrossFit, what does he tell you does first?
Just wait, you'll find out, right?
Yeah, he'll tell you. You'll find out all three quickly.
No, but it's something about probably tattoos and shit. Like you can't do much about it when it's like, you remember like seeing a cross or something, like seeing a Navy cross or the trident or something. Like if it's a tattoo and it's just there, like you're gonna see it, so it's sort of like inevitable. But no, that's the point. And Marines off, you guys often wear hats or something. And I don't know if so many Army people do that. I mean,
Uh,
there's probably something to the the branch because everybody knows. Well, I think everybody at this point should know that the Marines end up learning your whole history because there's so few of you that y'all learn your all's history. You're all riflemen and all that. Where a lot of times people go into at least in my experience, people go in the Army and Air Force and Navy for education and contracts and school, helping to pay for school or paying for school completely, and then maybe even send them off into a career. So, you know what I mean? They're doing it for a few years. It's almost like a step in the job thing. It's not like and they're definitely not in any danger. You know what I mean? Like, except for maybe a training accident or the same dangers we all face as, like, trains and cars and stuff. Uh, I think there's tons of people who can safely volunteer for the Army, Navy, or Air Force and know that they'll almost never be uncomfortable. Seriously, at this point, right? Like, they may be a little bit uncomfortable for a few months, and then the rest of the time it's just a fucking job. And gets them
Hmm.
to where they want to go. They get out. Like, why would they have any esprit de corps or any kind of, you know what I mean? Like, fond memories even of that, other than maybe the people that they hung out with. I don't want to ditch or diss on, that many people, but it is kind of like that. It's one of the reasons I've never been a fan of bureaucracy. Maybe as somebody goes
What's that?
in, I guess we all volunteer. Well, I shouldn't say that. I was going to say a lot of us volunteered for just the whatever duty our parents were in, something like that, payback country or something. And then there's, you volunteer with people who are there to make a couple of bucks, then, or just get ahead in their career, or have a roof for a few weeks. You know what I mean? There's just all kinds of reasons people join.
True.
Another one, 32 ACP, best cartridge for fun, especially the VZ61 Scorpion.
Okay.
Interesting. 61 Scorpion. Uh, do we still have the screen up? There we go. Have you shot him?
I haven't shot one, but it's one of those that you stare at, and it's my one of my. Hey, it'd be really cool to shoot that high rate
Not
of
even the
fire,
semi-autos that they've
short.
come out with.
Ugh, they just need to stop with that. I mean, I get it because that's all you're able to get, but
Right.
it's like, yeah, it kind of takes the fun out of it.
Definitely for that particular one. I've gotten to shoot them at, um, you know, what do we call, like, orientation type of shoots or whatever. I don't know anybody
Hmm.
that owns one, but I guess I do know people that own them, but I've never just gone out and just shot one for fun or whatever. No, I haven't. But they're neat, and they're definitely night and day. They're not even worth shooting. Well, I don't want to say that. They're definitely different shooting in semi-auto. They are one of the funner full auto ones to shoot. And that's true. I think I agree that as far as for fun, the 32 is inexpensive. It doesn't waste a lot of lead or powder. I guess technically it's a small primer. You're still shooting the primers off, but that's what reloading machines are for, right? These are to keep reloaders employed. So for people that are not familiar or listening, the Scorpion is Cold War era Soviet 32 ACP full auto. I don't know what to call it. Is it a subgun or is it just an auto pistol?
You can call it a PDW, but yeah, it's a sub guns automatic pistol.
I guess PDW
The
is fair
magazine,
because it has a stock. I mean,
yeah.
they did have little tiny wire stocks on them, but they were like for kind of like what we would use an M1 carbine for, maybe, or like what people would use an Uzi for, like for people that, like, I don't need a long gun because I'm not going to battle, but if I need to defend this room or this vehicle, I'm going to kill everybody that comes near me. So it's,
Well, it was
it's
used in
inexpensive for anybody.
vehicles. Yeah, it was used in vehicles. It was used by the police. It's just a little squirt gun. Done. Light it up, baby.
So
And
fast. And I think, I can't remember for the life of me, are they 20 round mags or 30 round mags? They still
20,
got
I
some
think.
diameter, but I know I'm thinking of these long ones, but I mean, they don't you can get bursts out of them. It is possible, I'm sure. But especially if you owned one, you're shooting it for real. But so easy to empty it. And this is interesting. I never shot it with a can. That would be neat. I really like guns where the can is as big as the gun because that shows you how small the gun is. Because
Hmm.
that's a can for 32. That's not like a 45 ACP can. Like when you look at a Mac, it looks kind of like this, but that's a 45 ACP can. This is a 32 can, so that's a little gun. That's why I'd call it like just a machine pistol. It's just that because it's got a stock and kind of that forward thing with the grit with the mag up front. But I don't know about accuracy wise. I think I shot a semi-auto one at the range one time.
I think a lot of these things are iconic because most people haven't shot them. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, I know that gun. Yes, because it's in video games and movies, and your favorite YouTuber might run a mag through every now and again. But once you get your hand on it, you're like, this thing kind of sucks. That stock is foldy as hell. It doesn't really lock out. It's not stiff. For something that's full auto, the freaking mag is over with quickly because it's so short.
Little, yeah.
Um, yeah, it's like low capacity for the rate of fire. It's like all of a sudden a lot of the fun is drained out of it if you actually had to run the dang thing. Like the Uzi, I was surprised at how heavy the Uzi is. Still cool because I got to shoot the wooden handled version of the Uzi, which I think is the best version of the Uzi. Because
Nice.
if you're gonna go with nostalgia, let's go with nostalgia. Let's go with what the Israelis used in '67. Um, Pretty cool. And that foldy, bendy beard grabber that they called the folding stock sucked. The wooden stock was just bam, there. It was a piece of wood. You shoulder it, you cheeked it, and you got busy with it. That was one of the favorite guns that I shot. I really enjoyed that. Like shooting the Tommy gun was cool. It's the Tommy gun. And I got to pull the trigger on that. I shot a Sten gun, a Sten or a Sterling. I can't remember which one. Um, same for the most part. But when I shot the Uzi, I was geeked up. I shot the MP5 and it was cool. I mean, it was just cool. But I like the wooden stock, the Uzi best. I shot the other one with the folder in Pennsylvania when I went to the Josh Prince event, where they use as a fundraiser to help fight laws in Pennsylvania, fight gun laws in PA, and that was great. Going to machine gun shoots are a lot of fun, and if you live in a state like mine of New Jersey, where you're really not going to have a full auto machine gun shoot, going out of state and going to one really makes sense. And if you could go to one like I did, um, again, Josh Prince holds this shoot every year. And oh, where's my shirt? Oh, I was gonna say I was gonna try to freaking name it off the top of my head, but I just did laundry. So it's called the Firearms Industry Consulting Group, and he hosts events every year to raise money to fight anti-gun laws in PA. And they have just tons of machine guns. Some people rent it. You can go there and you can give them money and shoot their guns. Others are just bringing their, they can't because they don't have the insurance. So they'll let you shoot their guns for free or they won't let you shoot their guns at all. But yeah, there are people out there that just let you shoot their guns for free. And I had fun doing that.
Yeah, most of the people I know from out here, the machine gun shoots, I don't want to say most, many of, well, I could say most of the people I know, which isn't most of the people. So of the people I know, back in the day, at least when you'd go out there and shoot, they owned their machine guns from years ago. So it's not like they just bought their machine gun yesterday and they're all worried about it. Most of these folks either are shooting stuff that they ran in the military or stuff that their parents ran or something. So, a lot of machine guns are old, especially transferable stuff. So it's not like people are out there shooting the stuff you see in the movies today or like the Matrix or something. It's, it's older stuff. And unless it's abused, like it's going to be just, it's a freaking machine gun. So most of them are more than happy. At least I say, like the people that I've known were more than happy to let you shoot. And I guess it was depending a little bit on the years, but most of the people that shoot machine guns are looking at ammo differently than the rest of people. So they buy it in different ways than regular people, in much larger quantities. And when they're buying it like that and they're at a machine gun shoot, they're not usually real petty with, oh, how many times are you going to squeeze the trigger? They like to see their guns get used, and it's one thing to shoot the thing, but they also like to see people enjoying it and be able to be the person to give you that chance. So I'm not going to say every machine gun owner is going to let you, but again, it's not like maybe a car owner who's not going to let you just drive a car around or something, or a motorcycle owner is going to say, "Yeah, jump on my motorcycle and drive it around."
True. But when you take in the cost of some of these guns, it's the equivalent of it.
That's true. They definitely have gone up and stuff. But again, like I think most of them think of like their gun as their $600 Thompson or their $1,300 Uzi or something. Maybe an Uzi never cost that cheap, but $3,000 Uzi. So speaking of Uzis, I like the full size one. Bob used to have them in the shop all the time, so I think I've shot all of them except for the 41 AE. But I think we've shot. Trying to remember them all now because there's conversion barrels and then there's dedicated Uzis that are in the different calibers. But I like the medium size Uzi, the mini, not the pistol, but the mini best. And I don't have, I dig the folding stock. Like that's one of the things I like best about little guns. So guns that don't have a lot of power, that don't need a lot of recoil spring or don't need a lot of to a lot of place to exist behind the trigger so that they can fold. So I get what you're saying with the wooden stock on the Uzi, but
Hmm.
I need to be able to fold a little gun like that. And even though the Uzi isn't ideal for folding because it is blowback and it does have that like space behind the ejection port that the bolt is sliding into, and there's springs and stuff back there, so it can't get really too small. Just same way, it's like too iconic to see that thing all folded up and under somebody's jacket, from back in the day when the bodyguards and shit would wear them.
Hmm. Yeah,
Well,
you
like
can see it in the
on
Ronald
a
Reagan.
snipe or something. Yeah, exactly.
You, yeah, you can see it in the Ronald Reagan assassination attempt when the guy pulls it out from underneath the coat and is just sitting there with a full size friggin' Uzi out. It's like, where did that come from?
With the stick mag.
Oh yeah, with the stick mag. Let's not get like what? What the heck? And the crazy thing, Ronald Reagan got hit by the ricochet. He didn't get hit directly by the round. He got hit by the ricochet of the round.
Oh, Triggerology was asking before, did you make any videos with those when you were shooting machine guns?
Yep, I got me shooting both the Uzis and the MP5 and the Thompson. So I have a picture of me shooting those, and then of course I have the one that just went viral last weekend. You know about that, right? We talked about it.
Did we?
Hmm. Yeah. So if you go to my X, second is for everyone. I posted it up on my page, and you can see one channel called Kira Kira. They posted me shooting at Train and Learn. They have 16.1 million views,
Nice.
and it's a picture of me firing a tactical life AR-15 10.5 inch full auto. What's his name? Rolo from Puerto Rican Pistolero. He was there. Clayton from Pivotal Defense was there. Alicia was there from Boomstick Bay. So we were all at Train and Learn, and I fired this thing, and I did a mag dump, and it didn't move. So that was pretty cool. And whoa, they did a change in the number count. It's like all of a sudden it dropped from says it's 20,000 20.9K views, which is weird because it was over 11 million the other day. So I have no idea how it dropped down like that. I'm thinking it might have went up to 20 million. That's what they were talking about. It's just doing a weird flex. So yeah, it was over 25 million the other day because I posted it, and it resulted in about 150 new followers for me. Which again, the only reason, Well, the only reason I count that 150 new followers is because we're about to launch a charity, and I'm going to need to reach as many people as possible. So that 150 might, translate into one donation because it's a numbers game.
I was sitting here thinking about it, and when I post stuff on
Nation.
when I click on stuff and post stuff over here, I don't think it goes to X. So I'm gonna post your X link on X so that the people listening on X can check it out. Trigology said another large account posted it too.
Yeah, I know two did. I don't. I ask people just to let me know if they see it because what I do is I repost
So
my
this is an
version
old
of it.
video. This is an old video.
Yeah, it's from 2021.
Okay.
It's a video from 2021, but to get it, they had to cut out everything that identified me. Like they did it on purpose, a bunch of assholes. But instead of being upset about it, I thanked them. And then I posted my video directly underneath that was from a different angle, a much cooler angle, because you could see the side view. The one that they posted was from behind, and the one from the side is more impressive, mainly because Rolo was standing there getting the crap beat out of him with my brass. It was coming straight at the camera. And I think people don't realize getting 30 brass freaking casings hitting you in the face in what, about a second and a half? It's disconcerting, but it looks pretty cool on video. He made me look good. What can I say?
All right. Well, speaking full auto, Trigology saying with the oncoming, or asking, I guess, is with the oncoming proliferation of FRTs, videos
Hmm.
content with rapid fires, or video content with rapid fire is about to become commonplace. That's going to be interesting. So, force reset trigger, basically a mechanism that allows you to shoot without pulling trigger more than once. Or no, wait,
Hmm.
allows you to shoot fast without dealing with actual definition of full auto. So, full auto is when the gun itself can shoot more than one bullet with the pull of a trigger. There's no law that says anything about if you modify your gun with an attachment or a different trigger to do something else. Then so they come up with the force reset. So they
Hmm.
basically just let a gun shoot really fast. Why would you want to shoot really fast? I don't know, because feel like it, or some kind of competition or something where the more quickly you can shoot into a place or at one time, then you win something. So, and who knows, whatever the reasons people might want to do that. But it's effectively niche because uh, if you put a trigger in, then the gun is that way. Even with the select
Hmm.
thing, your gun is that way. So it's niche that way, but it's also niche with money because ammo isn't free in any way.
Hmm.
So not everybody who wants to do that could even just do it because of the cost. So I consider it almost like a non-issue, but of course I'm familiar with guns and gun owners, and I'm not afraid of stupid shit. So people who hate full auto are only going to see criminals doing stuff. Don't think, well, criminals can already modify a gun to shoot full auto, or criminals will just buy full auto guns from the countries they buy fentanyl from, or whatever, right? Where they buy morphine or whatever, opium and shit from. So anyway, so we've got this fear of full auto that's just existed since the 30s, the 1930s, so almost 100 years, because they've regulated it so much. And now we're seeing people build in things that comply, but also give us the ability to shoot quickly. So now that we see court cases that have challenged the idea that a modification that allows you to shoot quickly isn't technically different. And then the courts have said, well, we're going to take a look at that. And no, your law says this and they're doing that. So it does not apply. Like you are not covered, or they are not restricted from doing what they want to do over here. So now that we're seeing that, and the net result is that most people are going to look at it and go, oh, that guy's shooting like a machine gun. So I don't disagree at all that the proliferation of the force reset triggers will make fast shooting commonplace. uh, I think what'll happen is recreationally it'll become a thing, and then anybody who shoots recreationally and in any kind of sport will start doing the calculations in their head, and the gears will start turning, and we'll start to see steel matches, because that's the best way to shoot full auto is at steel, because you don't have to go paper, you don't have to go tape nothing, and you can reset steel real easy. So shooting trees and the plate racks and Texas stars and stuff, like all of that stuff becomes a whole nother game when you can shoot something full auto. We were just talking about a Scorpion, so now let's talk about
Hmm.
shooting 32 ACP or 25 ACP or even 22 really fast. Now it doesn't cost as much, and you can shoot real fast for all afternoon, or bring your wife or your kids out and shoot full auto real fast all afternoon. So
Well,
that changes culture, right? Now everyone's like, "Oh, I'm not afraid of full auto." And are we going to see more criminals using full auto? No, I don't think so. But anyway, go ahead.
yeah. So one of the parts about the lawsuit that was settled was you can't have. Uh, Pretty much, they set force rare breed onto the rare breed is pretty much got to police the industry and police their design. And if anybody comes up with anything else, rare breed has to sue them, and they get the support of the government. Also, rare breed is to not ever develop a force reset trigger for a handgun, because the force reset trigger only works right now on the ones that were out there with ARs, AR-15s. So it's not like there's, a whole bunch of different firearms that shoot it. So it's just an AR. You might be able to get a 22 because it's the trigger rebounding, but it's something that's going to have to use that buffer system. And I think a gas system. I'm not really sure how that works, but I know because I've shot it. I've shot the force reset trigger in both a carbine and a rifle length gas system. And the longer the gas system, the faster it shoots. So it is ridiculous in a rifle length gas system. It outran both the MP5. It easily outran the Uzi, and it outran the Thompson, and it outran the MP5. And that was just in the carbine lane. So we're talking about a very fast rate of fire. And I think it's not even going to be that popular because it goes through rounds so fast. I think a few people will buy it, but understand it's a $400 trigger.
Yeah, that's a factor of uh, demand and their ability to make them and want to be in business, and seeing other people come out with clever things and get destroyed by big companies. Because how long is it going to take for something popular to be taken by either a massive distributor who makes stuff, because there's distributors that make their own stuff, and then
Hmm.
any company that wants to make it. So unless they get their money in there, or their cost for the thing to be able to stay in, I mean, if they're just walking away with pockets full, well, then somebody is going to just come in and make it and take over, right? But if they're taking that money
Well,
and investing it into lawyers and partnerships with companies, if they come out with a Smith and Wesson fast, this and that, that's smart. Then I can understand the price. But I guess,
what's the name?
go ahead.
Uh, what's the name of that company? Big Daddy Unlimited came up with pretty much, how do I say it? It seems that they just made a copy of the Force Reset trigger and made it in another country and then imported it back in here. They got shut down with theirs. So you got to be real careful because the owner of Rare Breed is a lawyer, and he built that to take on the ATF. So this was all part of his plan from the very beginning. Before it even got shut down, he'd done interviews about it. He was like, "Yeah, I believe that. Yeah, ATF will come along and try to shut us down, but I built this with that in mind. We follow the rules, so we didn't break any rules."
But
And
you comply with poorly made law or poorly written law, then that's not the
mhm,
fault of the person. That's the fault of the poorly written law. But you do that often to challenge the poorly written law. Um,
exactly.
well, that's what I'm sort of getting at with the
Yeah.
original question, with the proliferation of these. And this is one particular one, but there are others. You could just call the bump stock same
Hmm.
thing, like same effect.
Yep.
So, and then we saw the final. That took a little minute, but we saw the a positive conclusion there. But I've said this since 2016 or whatever it was when they first came out. Was it 12 or 16? I have to remember now. Might have been 12 when they first came out.
Uh,
Oh no, it had to be 12 when they first came out. 16 was one of the
Wait a
flip
minute.
flops. Because in 15 we did the whole brace this patch campaign.
Wait a
So
minute. No.
yeah,
Yeah.
they came out in like 12,
It,
maybe.
it it's all running together because I hung out with those guys at the Great American Outdoor Show for 2 freaking days. I actually hung out with the guys from Bump Stock,
But
and I can't even
whenever
remember
that
what year it
first,
is. Go ahead.
but whatever, like I say, it was a while ago.
Mhm. Yeah.
And it was before I would consider myself an activist. I was just a gun enthusiast and doing stuff. But anyway, I knew right from the beginning that this is going to normalize uh, full auto the same way that the
Hmm.
brace. You know what? I'm mixing up the brace and the bump stock, so I'm wrong. I
Yeah.
could be wrong. I'm thinking of the brace. Um, but the bump stock and the brace, gave us short barrel rifles. Now, of course, we got the Hearing Protection Act, and
Hmm.
see, we have the mileage that it's made this time around. We had it go pretty far in 2018 as well. So let's not act like we're not repeating history right this moment. But
Hmm.
the real question is, are we at a point now with all of them? Like, because that's the thing. We have challenges to any other weapon all over the place. We have
Hmm.
challenges to SBRs with the braces. We have challenges to full auto with the triggers and with the bump stock. And then we have challenges to the firearms. Well, I guess two shotguns with the firearms that exist. And then we have the lever actions that exist. Let's not forget about those that are just firearms, right? Let's not forget about the things that aren't surbus, but are firearms. Let's just keep saying they're firearms because they don't, they comply
Hmm.
with the NFA by not being any definition of the NFA. So we have enough of this stuff that I think, and you guess what I'm about to go to? Like, we have enough precedents that all we have to do is education. All we have to do is understanding. And I've seen the people mocking the Democrats who are against the suppressor part of the big beautiful bill or whatever bullshit it's called. One,
Hmm.
I'm not a big fan of getting behind anything just because they attach gun shit to it. Like, I didn't
Hmm.
get behind big government just because they had gun shit to it. So let's get off of that, like right off the bat. Like, let's not, just have to like huge spending bills and shit. I don't know what all's in this thing. Like, I'm definitely pro gun, but I don't know what the hell the rest of this bill is. So I'm not a big fan of this thing being wrapped up in a big bill. So there's going to be a lot of people who are against it for whatever the hell else is in
Hmm.
this thing. But as far as what's in it or whatever, like I say, all I've seen is people mocking the Democrats essentially who are against it, and they're saying like, "What
Hmm.
is this? Who's against? Who's for this? The assassins lobby or
Yeah.
something?" So it's like that is so easy. Like, you can laugh at them, you can get mad at them, but it's so easy to educate. Like, God dang, I hope that we will get to a point where people will take these opportunities so that we could take suppressors off the table right now, because there's nothing that criminals like about taking your gun and adding 6 to 12 inches to the front of it, making that 6 to 12 inches fragile so you can't break it or bend it or anything or it'll ruin the gun, or make it so it can't shoot, I guess, and make it so that it's super hot so that you can't shove it in your pants anymore. You can't put it anywhere. It's super hot. It'll literally catch things on fire sometimes. It'll definitely melt stuff. So you either
Hmm.
drop the gun after you shoot it, or you have to deal with this super long, super hot thing. It's like anti-crime. There's a reason criminals aren't using suppressors every single day,
Hmm.
and that's just one, right? Like, one thing that could be challenged when people are bringing up this, like, objection to this, the suppressor part of it. But honestly, I'd rather see the stuff all go through separately. Just challenge the NFA separately and have a massive write-in campaign the way that it seems to have worked for the Hearing Protection Act. Because pulling off the Short Act, I don't know what the Short Act is supposed to do, but unless you're pulling the NFA apart, I don't like the idea of just pulling plucking little leaves off of it, because that implies that it still needs to be there. Just the fact that you're being tender with it implies that it needs to exist, and I don't like that. Like, let's cut it off at the base. like it's removed from the roots. And the same thing with this Hearing Protection Act. It's cool that we're able to take this angle, but what are we going to have? Machine guns need to be taken off because they're therapy, like taking suppressors off because of the hearing issue, the hearing protection issue doesn't open the door to like take short rifles off or AOWs. I mean, it should, but it's not going to for regular people unless we change the dynamic and we change the whole thing and we educate enough people about firearms to the point where they're not scared of them anymore. And we can just get rid of the NFA and not have to worry about any of this. Like, I normally I understand the taken steps or taken nibbles, but I'm not anti this Hearing Protection Act, but I'm just frustrated we're having to concede, or uh, is it a compromise that we're having to compromise with just letting one thing be peeled off instead of taking the whole thing down? Am
Okay,
I too
so
pessimistic?
no, it annoys me, but because somebody asked this on X, and they were like, "Yeah, well, this spending bill, we have a chance to shrink spending." I'm like, "Stop with the shrink spending bullshit." Seven on the last 15 years, they couldn't even come up with a budget. So let's not act as if this is a done deal. You know what I mean? Even getting this approved. The other thing is the Republicans were the one that were throwing roadblocks in front of this, not the Democrats. This was all Republican. There was no Democrat involved in any of this writing of the bill and putting it out. It was the Republican Party that were throwing the obstacles up.
And with enough, what do they call it, like majority that they could, if the Republicans would have all been in unity, then it would have just been already done already, right?
Yep. So this is the Republican Party itself screwing you over and making up excuses again because they can't. Uh, they are not pro gun. That's one of the problems, and we have to hold them accountable. Now, do I care? No, no. Pass it. But you voted for tax increases. Everything in the bill is never going to be great. That's why they make them so big, and that's why they don't allow line item vetoes, so you could go through and chop bullcrap off of a bill. They do this on purpose so they can, both sides, put things in the bill that you'd have to hold your nose and then vote for the bill.
Yep.
They
So that
do it on purpose.
they can both greedily put money in their pockets, and then they can both point at the other side for putting money in their pockets, and then they can go, "Can you
Yeah.
believe what they did?" Yeah, it's fucking
Yep.
horrible.
100%. And we fall for it every time. So I go, yes,
Exactly.
100%. Vote for our firearms related rights. Yeah, but did you know they're going to take Social Security away from us? Man, I don't care if they beat babies with wiffle wall bats. I'm done with this, dude. They play the same game every time. We didn't think this would happen again, that the Republicans would both get the presidency in both houses because they squandered this in 2016. They squandered it for 2 years and we got absolutely nothing. The Hearing Protection Act, we got no reciprocity, we got nothing. So, yes, this time put your foot in their ass. I don't even like the idea of national reciprocity. We need a Supreme Court case to push it through. But once we get it, we got it. Take it how we can get it. Quit looking for the perfect storm of everything working out like a freaking fairy tale. It's not going to freaking happen. All right. It's not going to happen. So take your wins where you can. Again, 7 out of the last 15 years, they haven't been able to get a budget together. They're going to screw this up again later on anyway. Whatever this big, beautiful bill is going to get undone in 20, what, in 2 years when it's another vote. And we're not going to win the House and the Senate again for the second half of Trump's term. We're just not.
I think he
So,
was. I don't know if he's just being pessimistic or if he's got some insight on this. He's saying the Hearing Protection Act, will be pulled out of this. The Gunners America has flat out said before that the National Reciprocity and Hearing Protection Act, etc., are used as scare tactics to get other stuff. Have you heard this, or
yep,
is he okay?
I haven't heard it, but I'm pessimistic because I do not trust the Republican Party. And I've said it before, the Republican Party continually uh, snatches defeat from the jaws of victory. They will not allow us to win on the gun issue because they're as anti-gun as the Democratic Party is. They're the ones making up excuses for this right now. The Republican Party alone. The Democrats haven't been presented with the bill yet. You know what I mean? I mean, it passed, but it was going to pass regardless of what we put in it out of this House. It was we had enough Republican votes. It was the Republicans that were bulking against putting everything in it that we wanted. Why is that? Oh, it won't pass the bird law. Who cares? Put it up and make them kill it.
Like way to
You and
say
I,
it's
right?
they've passed so far. They've passed five bills, the fewest ever. Does that mean this Congress?
Imagine this: me, you, Mike White, trigonometry, guns and barbecue are all Republican lawmakers. Do you think we like fiddle faddle around and be worried about what the other side does when we're trying to write a pro gun bill? No. I'm like, not only repeal the NFA, but give everybody who you took guns from their guns back if they're alive. Um, crack open the record books and show all the dirt you've done and the illegal ways you held stuff. Because what we're trying to do when we have power isn't compromise, it's move the Overton window about what's accepted. And then they have to fight it back from there. And the Republican Party's not doing it. It's like you take big steps, not baby steps, because they're going to be able to roll this stuff back that we just did.
Yeah, it's more like I think it's like a dance step than a baby step, right? Like it's a strategic step that has a look. It's meant to look a certain way from the audience, but you know what I mean. Just same way a dance move doesn't really do nothing. They don't go anywhere. They're just fucking dancing around.
Hmm. Yeah, this is not what we think it is. The Democratic Party, when they make bold moves and they move the Overton window about what's expected. Oh, at least we can do this now because they didn't take this. The Republican Party's like, all right, baby steps because we don't want to scare them like the Democrats are baby deer that we're sneaking up on. I'm like, bro, you kicked the door in. Let's do this. Let's move the ball down the field, stop playing defense, and stop freeing. The Democrats already have stated they're anti gun. Fine. You're going to vote against this eventually, but as long as I have the votes, I'm taking it as far as I possibly can.
It's like an
You know what I
exercise
mean?
in a muscle. Yeah, it's like I feel it's like exercising a muscle. You keep exercising it, and then once you've mastered the move or the technique or the thing that you're trying to do, then you keep doing it as exercise. Like you keep doing it so
Yeah.
you don't work out, you don't forget how to do it. So yeah, you tell these representatives, leave us alone, leave us alone, leave us alone. Every time they come around, you tell them leave us alone, and eventually they go, as they're making their little plots and schemes, they go, you know what, they don't want us around, so we're gonna have to do something else or go somewhere else.
Yeah. So how hard would I push it? I'm like, bro, I'm pushing it until they get rid of NSA, right? Get rid of the Hughes Amendment, get rid of it all, beat it down. And on the birthday of the National Rifle Association, everybody gets a free range pass sent to you by the U.S. government for friggin' at least 2 boxes of ammo. like, like I push it that hard, um,
I
because it
think
will
it
never
should
be
be
there.
a bunch of ammo and guns on a shelf that there's an endless supply, but you got to go at least get it from the shelf. I don't think it should just be sent to everyone.
All of a sudden, the CMP becomes something that's in every state that you go shop to, you know.
That'd be
But
interesting. Like that shows up at the front of every event,
mhm.
like a vendor would.
Yeah, it's just boom, CMP is here. Oh, cool.
How can we help
You
you?
can buy some M1 carbines. But
Seriously, like we'd like to find out what your situation is. Like, do you have enough ammo at home? Like, do you need a new caliber, a new type of shooting sport? Like, are you getting drained out on all those shotguns? You want a 22, or how about you get a an AR? How about we get you another AR? What if we get a 308?
somebody sitting there with 30 super
A
carry
reverse
slapping the
buyback.
side of it. Yeah,
A reverse
30 super
buyback.
carries. Yeah, nice. 30 super. This baby gets so much many more rounds in the magazine. Slap. This is what you want. 30 super carries, new hotness.
It's the gun show. They have to go past their booth, and then they'll shame you. Like, what? You're not leaving with a gun? Give it. Let me. Here, you take this one. Do you own a 380? Here, now you have a 380. And
Hey,
go back
buddy,
in there
I
and buy
see you
some
came
ammo.
in. Yeah, right. Hey, buddy, want extra magazines for the guns you bought? What do you mean you didn't buy a gun? Come here, pal. I know a guy. What's what's the problem here? Uh, yeah, I'm being silly, but the flip side is we need to push. And it annoys me because Republicans will sit on their ass and clap on the win and think they own the liberals without putting any work in. We have to put work in if we want to move this Overton window. We have to. We cannot sit around and go, we're good. No, we're not. We're never good.
Well, I'd like to see this vote too. This I think I just seen the well, I don't remember when I seen the vote. It was I think there was like some number of Democrats that voted pro gun. There was one Republican that voted anti, and then there was no votes, and there was no libertarian votes, which I thought was weird, or independent or something. So
I thought somebody voted president. I thought somebody voted president. I think it
maybe
was like
somebody
one
voted
person.
president or something. But anyway, so I thought it was pretty party lines, and much
Hmm.
rather see. I don't care if it's a controversial topic. That's still a challenge, to stop that. But I'd much rather see it be non party. So in other words,
Hmm.
60% of the Republicans liked it and 40% of the Democrats liked it. That would be a nice place to be, because now we're just talking about it like, is it an actual benefit or not? Not our guns, it's touching
Yeah.
guns, therefore we hate it type of thing. But that might be, again, too much to ask for at this moment. I think that was one of the other things is, we change, and I don't want to put it past. Let's think about how people voted when there was just newspapers and radio, or maybe think about how people just voted back in the day. Then there was newspapers. Well, I guess there's always been newspapers pretty much, but then there was
Hmm.
radio, and all of a sudden people could fuck with shit on radio. Is that when the 1938 Gun Control Act passed or not? Like, I don't know, kinda. I don't know if anyone's ever put a relation between laws and modes of
Media.
communication or whatever. Yeah, media. But anyway, I'm just thinking, how did we vote back in the day? How did we vote when there was television and we had just a few channels? Then how did we vote when there was 1,000 channels and that was the age of 24-hour news? Then we got to the internet. Now we got to the internet with, internet. What internet are we now? Internet 5.0 maybe? Where we have people like the Joe Rogans taking over for the Rush Limbaughs. Is like focusing, and I don't know who's the other side. Is the other side the View or something? Like, I don't know what the other side's Joe Rogan is, but you know
Hmm.
what I mean. Everybody's got their figureheads that feed them their line or whatever. Like, yeah, I think that we're forgetting that we've had some changes, but we're not done. We have AI about to hit, and is people look at the negative side of AI all the time. I heard a really interesting conversation with a guy who builds AI robots that kill people. So a guy who's definitely okay with AI killing people. But his deal was, would you rather have a mine that indiscriminately kills anybody that steps on it, or a mine that's got AI in it and will kill a tank rather than a school bus? They'll let a school bus roll over it 100 times, but when a tank rolls over it, it blows off. Which would you rather have? And do you want to just not use AI because you hope the other side won't use AI because you morally think that it's a bad thing, or you think it's leading to Skynet, but you're going to hope the other side doesn't use it? Like, we don't live in a world where we get to just go, I'd rather not use chemical weapons, therefore I'm not going to develop them. Like,
Hmm.
we all decided that would be a good idea. And then what happened in 2020? I mean, I guess maybe I'm not allowed to say that. But anyway, um, now I went off. It's in a uh, thing and went off in a direction. I guess I was just saying that kind of depends on the time. And I do believe that we have the future coming. And as bad as the negative shit is with AI, potentially everybody who doesn't even know about AI and knows about watching Terminator movies, has fears of
Hmm.
AI. Think about the positive side of AI, where AI can determine really fast. Like, people are worried about AI images. It takes like you don't even have to go to Google. You can just go to a website, and if you have any concern about an image, you show it to this robot, and the robot will tell you, yeah, that's an AI image, and here's the AI that made it, because they all have their little signatures and stuff. They're like little techniques and stuff. So any concern we have as humans right now, that's the same concern people had when they saw cars driving around and said, well, horses will stop if they see you there, and a car won't. Well, guess what? Horses don't give a shit about you. They will trample right over you sometimes. And cars now have robots in them, so they will stop. You know what I mean? So just because we're seeing the beginning end of this tech doesn't mean that tech doesn't have super beneficial. And I consider one of the potential benefits of AI, the understanding and the translation and the, I don't know if there's a better word than understanding, but like the ability to understand. Like how much of the
Hmm.
fucking conflicts in the world are misunderstandings? I'm pretty sure all of them. There are some bad people that do bad things, but I'll bet you an overwhelming amount of the like stress in the world is misunderstandings. And once AI can be like, hey, this guy, it's a typical, this son of a bitch is driving so slow in front of me. Well, if AI can tell you the son of a bitch in front of you is driving slow because his wife's pregnant and he's trying to get her to the hospital without blah, 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 right? Like you're going to shut up real quick and go, oh my gosh, let me get in front of him and drive slower, right? Like, you know what I mean? Like if it can remove some of that shit, then, or the same thing with why is this guy behind me in such a rush? Well, he's trying to get his bleeding somebody to the hospital. Once AI can understand that, a lot of the issues are gone, and a lot of the exploitation of those that stress is what we're dealing with. Right, people that know that they can uh, profit off of us. Um, well, anyway, I'm on a tirade here, but that's where I'm seeing that the future could be, or maybe, to where we've all got little robots on our shoulder, little tricorder things that we wear, maybe jewelry or something, because everything's getting smaller. I mean, look at our watches now, like what our little watches can do. So, what's our little jewelry going to do? What's a ring going to do in a couple of years, or something we wear on our head that interfaces with our brain, or an earring or something, and then whispers in our ear, this is bullshit. Here's your bullshit meter. Like, nope, this guy's saying something that, how long is it going to be before augmented reality says, you're listening to a broadcast and this guy's saying something that, is six stages away from where that guy, where, source material was. So, yeah, I don't know if I'm going on too many tangents here, but I think AI can give us a future where it's a lot more like Star Trek and a lot less like Terminator.
Yeah, I think people get carried away with stuff. I mean, Jules Verne, and then the early movies and what they thought technology would lead to and where we got to today. I mean, you can go back to turn of the century and go, oh, they didn't know anything. Well, you can go back to the 50s, you can go back to the 70s, like what they thought the 2025 would be like. And none of them would be lost outside of maybe how your phone works and how many different inventions are in your phone. Outside of that, I don't believe they'd be like in awe. They're like, wow, you guys still wear Chuck Taylors, huh?
Yeah, like
Crazy.
they'd probably be like, that car doesn't even make any noise. Like that car is not even loud. Like they have a different set
Yeah.
of values than we do.
It's like, it would be hilarious. Because I don't think they'd be wowed by where we went. I mean, you'd probably have to get someone from like who was, who's 25 years old in the 1920s, like 100 years ago, and maybe they'd be overawed. But 30s, 40s, especially post World War II, no. Like everything, you can see the clear line between A and B. They wouldn't think it was magic and run out of the room.
Well, if you went to 1920s, our grandparents were born in the beginning of the 1900s. Some of us are old enough to have grandparents born in the 1800s, maybe.
Hmm.
So that person who was born at the beginning of 1900s grew up before there was airplanes and then died after we'd been to the moon. And then
Hmm.
computers were theory and math on paper, and then they were smartphones. So probably, or close to being smartphones by the time they died. So then the question is, are we going to see that level of whatever evolution also? Like, will space travel be the thing that was just a theory when we were young, but we died? There's people on Mars and beyond. I mean, just an example. I know that Mars is now touchy because of fucking politics or whatever, but back in the days when we could say stuff like move to Mars and it wouldn't be a political thing.
Oh, why is it? I don't. I'm unaware. Yeah, I'm
Well, I just
unaware
figure
as a
because of
political thing.
Musk likes Mars and Musk likes trunks, so now you're not allowed to like Mars travel anymore because of
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. I don't participate in having voluntary mental illness, so I don't really pay attention to most of that.
voluntary censorship.
Um, yeah, it's like, what is wrong with you? Um, Yeah, dude. I love the fact that we fought for our freedoms, right? Like people before us, but we're kind of losing it now. Like a lot of people don't want to try. They worry, and I'm like, bro, push it, push hard to make this happen because the next generation after us is going to have less rights with us and than us because that's the way it always been. Like we don't push understanding that, and that's what bothers me. And the reason I'm not acting like I'm better than anyone, but I came from a free state and I moved to New Jersey. And I'm like, how did you people get here? And it was through incrementalism. It was through allowing this crap to happen because you didn't want to rock the boat. You didn't want to push too hard. I'm like, you got to push back because these people have grown used to the fact that they need to get a permission slip from the government to even touch a gun in the gun store because they've conditioned them since the late '60s that you need a firearms ID card, and then they condition them again that you need a pistol purchase permit. Then they condition them again that you have to fill out paperwork just to get pistol ammo at the store, like your name has to go on a list. All of this happened over time. That's why I say we push back because it can happen nationwide. I mean, how many people are good with, oh, yeah, you need a carry permit? Most people. Most people. Oh, it's understandable. Yeah, you got to get a carry. No, you don't. No, you don't. Well, you should have some kind of class before you could carry. Why? Do you have some kind of class before you could post your stupid ass opinion on social media?
Without any
That's dangerous.
research, suggests that
Yeah.
people are so dangerous with a gun that they need to be governed by the state and, like you just said, be able to post that without any regulation by the state since it's false as fuck. So it's
Yeah.
like a. But the thing is, I don't think people are going to see that. I can't remember what I was just watching. I was watching something and it was so frustrating. Oh, it was probably I was doing some stuff, some video editing. So I was watching I was catching up on a lot of my military interviews, and that's what it was.
Hmm.
I was listening to somebody and I was kind of digging the interview, and I think it was with Mike Ritland, and I can't remember who it was because I'm trying to block it out because I like the guy and I like the rest of the conversation. And then he got to guns, and then it was basically every platitude bullshit crap that you heard back in the 90s, or that you'll hear somebody who would be like considered a FUD, or somebody who's just like
Hmm.
peripherally a gun owner but is going to say dumb shit like rack a shotgun, or just all the old shit that we all said at the beginning of the internet. And it was just so sad to listen to somebody who's you know who otherwise I would tend to respect, have just such a limited or old fashioned, antiquated, and lame version of gun owners, and it's such a I don't know if it was apathetic or just pessimistic, or if it's worse, I'm trying to be nice, attitude towards people who have a gun in their hand. Like, kind of like,
Hmm.
like, I respect what you've done and I really appreciate that you shared everything, but respectfully is fuck you. Like, guy, like,
Yep.
what the hell? You don't get to, nothing you've done, and I forget what this, it was probably a pilot or something, but nothing you've done gets you to tell anybody that you've experienced. Like, maybe if you, I can almost understand a cop who would have that opinion, like, I've seen a lot of people, I've been around a lot of shit. I can almost understand an emergency room doctor. I can almost understand a
Hmm.
nurse or something like that. I can almost understand taxi driver, somebody. But then on the other hand, fuck all of you too, because you only see the people who are committing crimes or getting hurt by people committing
Hmm.
crimes. You only see the people getting shot or the people dealing with the people getting shot. You only see the people who need a taxi for they got shot. Like, you don't see all the good stuff. So same kind of thing. Like, when somebody decides without much introspection or without much research, like, it feels like gun owners shouldn't have this, or people in general shouldn't have this much responsibility. It's just like, dang, dude, how many states do you need to have no restrictions at all and anybody can do anything they want? How many states do you need like that? For 10, it's been since 2009 in Arizona. It's been forever in some states. So how many decades do you need of millions of people having access to anything they want and nothing to have happened for you to change your
Hmm.
mind? And it's just because they've never thought about it. And that's the frustrating part, is it's just because we don't have these conversations as gun owners amongst
One
ourselves
hundred
enough.
percent.
The other side never hears it. So because we take shit for granted, right? I'm not going to talk about a whole
Yep.
bunch of stuff because I mean, literally, I won't even take parts in conversations because I've done it like 16 times. But that doesn't mean the
Hmm.
conversations don't need to happen. That's why I support as many new chat people as I can. New people who are new that create communities and start conversations amongst gun owners because we'll forget stuff if we depend on us to say stuff. There's, like I say, there's boring stuff that I'm not going to talk about. I know stuff about reloading, but I'm not going to talk about it because I consider it boring. I had to do it as a chore when I was a kid. It's like cutting a lawn. I mean, I know all kinds of shit about cutting a lawn. I'm never going to talk about it because I hate cutting a lawn. It's like a chore. So, you know what I mean? Like I don't want that stuff to disappear. I don't care about cutting the lawn at all, but I want reloading stuff to be on, to exist. So I'm super glad that there's whole communities of people that talk about that stuff. So when somebody new, young or old, but, new to it comes in, they can learn all about it and find out that it's actually work. It's like shooting into a chore, but it also makes it cheaper, I guess. Right. And it gives you something to do if you're super bored, I guess. I don't
So
want
that was one of the
to
things.
fuck on it. I'm just saying it's something I'm not into, but I would fully support it.
Yeah, because I do too. It's funny. It's annoying because talk about, well, I've had this conversation before. I have this conversation twice every month because everybody that comes to my events aren't at the same educational level about firearms. So when I have new people in, I have to remember, yeah, they don't know how many people save themselves alive a year with a firearm compared to, again, the gun violence. What's it? Epidemic. And I have to point out, yeah, the gun violence that epidemic is twisted in this way. And here's a breakdown of the numbers. I was like, now let me give you the numbers of people that save themselves using the lowest number they have, which is 250,000 a year, which is 4 times the gun violence epidemic number. So 4 times as many people save themselves with a firearm, and using their smallest number, by the way, 4 times, than take their own lives. Excuse me, not take their own lives, but lose their life to gun violence. So you think it's an epidemic with firearms? Imagine a violence epidemic without firearms. That's not counting the 2.5 million. That's the high number. So you would go from, again, 40 to 60,000 to 2.5 million people that would be violently assaulted and attacked every year. Yeah, get the hell out of here.
Oh man, that makes me think of something else I was just listening to, and it was super good. Oh, you know what it was? Alex Hooley, Forge of Freedom, had. Do you know Gun Law dot something? The website. It's like a blue website with a bunch of flags at the top, and they
Mm.
basically it's been around for a while. Is it gunlaw.us? And
Is
it'll
it
have
like
like
Knife Law's website?
no, it's one guy's project. It's been around for a while, and
Oh,
it's not funded by anybody. It's mostly arguments and points to bring up for different things that the other side will
nice.
bring up. So it'll be like gun deaths, and that's what they were talking about in this interview that I was
Hmm.
thinking of. Gun deaths by kids or whatever, the number one killer of kids, and then
Yeah,
he'll
yeah,
have
yeah,
on
yeah.
there like, oh well, here, let's break that down. It only works if they count, 19 to 22-year-old, depending on the survey, and then yes,
Hmm.
because all those gun deaths are between 16 and 19. So because all these gun deaths happen between 16 and 19, if you call those kids, then yes, that's why they can't say children anymore. They say kids because that's a more generic number or a more generic
Hmm.
word. But anyway, and he does it really. He says at the top of it, every page or something like gun facts. I got it. Somebody's got it here. Krabby Turtle found it. Thank you. Gunfacts.info. Um, but it'll say like gun facts, uh, non-political, just about the info. Anyway, so it was a conversation with that guy and Alex, the host of the show, who's out of Indiana, and they were talking about. Well, they were talking about specifically the whatever we're just talking about the kids
Hmm.
uh, kind of campaign that Gipperts has been doing for a while. Or I guess all of Bloomberg stuff has been doing for a while. For a
Hmm.
number of years now, it's been like their thing. again, it's a very easy one to challenge. Um, okay, thanks, Woods. I just was reading your thing. Um, they've been doing that for a while, and it's super easy to challenge because of this. Because they're definitely fudging the numbers or whatever you want to say to uh, make it 19-year-olds or whatever. Anyway, so one of the things he brought up, and I've heard this before, but I'm glad that he brought it up because now I can think of it more specifically. But it brings to what you were talking about with the number of violent crimes or the amount of violent crimes there might be if there weren't the what do you call like the what guns offer the I can't think of the resistance or not the resistance but the not deniability. What am I trying to think? The guns exist so the criminals don't become criminals. Anyway, because of that, like you say, if there weren't the laws or whatever. Anyway, this guy brought up that repeat criminals are a big thing. So when you hear those numbers, like how many millions or hundreds of thousands of
Hmm.
firearms have solved a crime, it's not like there's that many criminals and you got to be worried about everybody on the streets. It's just that there's repeat criminals. So there might be like 10 people in a gang, but there's probably like and then six gangs in a neighborhood or something. There's probably like two people in there that are comfortable murdering people and that murder the other people all the time. And they're indiscriminate or determined who they're going to murder, but essentially he gave up the fact or came up with that fact that you hear occasionally that it's like 15 counties or something where almost all the firearms violence is. I mean, there's a lot of suicides,
Hmm.
and that's different, and then there's very rare accidents, and then there's the deliberate you know defending life and stuff, and I don't know if that's as concentrated, but when you get to the crime between criminals, which is people would always say drug gangs, but I think that's probably turning into cartel violence at this point. And if it isn't the cartels themselves, it's the cartels who influence the street kids, right? The kids that are on the street probably aren't members of cartels, but if the drugs they're getting are from cartels and the cartels say, whatever their marching orders are, I'm sure the kids are, listening to that and wherever they're getting their guns and shit from. So anyway, it's all 15 counties, and I'm sure you've heard that one before. But it just gets so
Hmm.
frustrating when we pour money into so many things. How come we can't pour money into those 15 fucking counties? I know one of them is Cook County, that's Chicago, but still, if there's 15 counties, even if some of those are huge cities, we can pour money into the ones that aren't the huge cities and figure out what works. Because I know there's things that work, that can work, that will work.
I 100% agree. I've done it before. I talked about it before. Law enforcement in the larger cities, 100%, even in the smaller towns, know who's who for the most part. You're not riding in silence. You don't have this anonymity. There's no Mr. Big. You know what I mean? Like unknown Mr. Big behind the scenes that sits in the shadow. They know who commits the crimes. They know who the street dudes are, and you could get rid of them, but they don't. Because you need everybody on the same page. Like you can't like regular police officers, right? They see this guy on the corner every day selling drugs. They know he sells drugs. Um, they may have never physically seen him, but there's no particular reason you should be standing on this street corner every day, all day, doing nothing every time the cops drive by. So they know who that is. They probably know who he answers to. They know who he sells to. But when you don't have the district attorney on your side, you don't have the prosecutor, right? Yeah, prosecutors. When politically it's not going to work for you to make these arrests, then you don't make them. So all those people have to be on the same team, including the community itself. Okay, for these dangers to be taken off the street. When you get all that to happen, all of a sudden crime goes down. Also, yeah, arming personnel, like worked in Detroit, when all of a sudden citizens could have the get their permits and were able to carry in Detroit, the number of shootings went up and then it immediately went down. because the very few people that were doing armed robberies and that were being a threat to people, they got their ass shot. Many got killed, some went to prison. But then the crime rate dropped because all those people willing to do that thing were either dead or in prison, or survival instinct kicked in and they stopped doing that thing that was getting them shot or put in prison. It's almost like you're on your own. You have to be able to physically defend yourself against criminals and the government because both of them want you disarmed for a reason. So they can press their will upon you without your consent.
Let's see. So, leave my freedom saying if guns are not effective for defense, then law enforcement would not carry them. That's an interesting point. However, I'm sure they're also carrying them for offense, but that's an interesting position. I don't know if I've heard that one before.
Well, I've said before, if law enforcement needs firearms because of the criminal threat, then we need firearms for the same reason because we're the one that called law enforcement because of the criminal deeds. We're the victims. No one's robbing police cars. No one's carjacking police cars at the light. They're carjacking us. So if police need a firearm to do their job, we need a firearm to stop ourselves from being victims of the same people the police are armed for.
That's a good point. And if you're going to say that the police aren't attacked because they're carrying it, then the same applies. Like, then why wouldn't you allow civilians to, or non law enforcement to carry? I
Uh-huh.
guess the concern is that well, we're getting into the whole thing in circle here. Trying to read and it's not working to read and talk at the same time.
Talk at the same time. All right, cool. Let me see. Well,
But
our
anyway,
lives are as valuable as law enforcement, but understand law enforcement signed up to be that thin blue line. Like there's an inherent risk. I hear it all the time. I want to put handcuffs on you for what the heck, officer safety. Well, hey homie, you the one that became an officer. I didn't wake up this morning going, hey, I hope every officer around me feels safe and doesn't feel threatened and they can just put me in handcuffs if they do. No, you got the job with the risk, bro. I didn't.
it's a good point. If you want to be more secure, then take more Brazilian Jiu Jitsu or whatever, right? Like, take more
Yeah.
hands on
So
classes
yeah,
or something. Learn negotiation.
learn to fight, learn to talk to people.
Yeah, de escalate. Yeah,
Maybe
perfect.
no, just learn to talk to people and not act people because there are a lot of police officers that do that. Just the way they speak to you. I watch it happen at work all the time because again, I work in a prison, and you can see the difference between officers that actually speak to. Understand, inmates are people. This is a men's prison. I don't care what f all that gender crap. This is a men's prison. You can choose how you talk to inmates and deal with inmates. And a lot of people want to talk to inmates as if they're beneath them or things or just less than. And I'm like, well, that's a way to, work in a place where you have to be for about a quarter century before you can hit retirement. Or you can talk to people like human beings. I don't know what this person did and I don't care because it's not my job to punish them or judge them. I have to live with this person. I'm walking with the inmates. I'm in the same hallway as the inmates. I get my hair cut by the inmates. Um, so we have a conversation. I treat you like a human being. I don't talk down to you. Some officers don't do that. And it's like, well, where are you coming from with this, bro? You still got to live here. You still got to live with these people. You can have that attitude, but you better keep it all the time. You better talk to everyone like that. You know what I mean? You can't come out of character. That's one of the harder things that you have to try to teach people. Um, how you walk in that prison is how you gotta be all the time. How you gotta be seen. If your person is friendly until somebody steps across the line, then be that all the time. You can't let some people walk all over
I got
you.
hung
And
up
that's
on
one of the things.
when you said they're cutting your hair. So I'm assuming you just go in, pick one of the cells, go in there, give them a couple of
Oh
cigarettes, and
yeah,
get there for you.
yeah, yes. That's what I do. I take a random cell and I walk in and I give them I sharpen up a piece of metal and I have them shave me. No, we have the barbershop. So we have the inmate barbershop where it allows them to bring money in. It allows officers to keep to maintain their grooming standards. And it's there. So they don't have to go out and get a haircut. They got a haircut there. And it also gives various inmates job skills. They learn to cut hair. They learn to do different styles. They learn to shave beards. And then they do it consistently. And when they get out, also understand that's not the only place. On the units themselves, they have unit barbers that cut hair on the units. We got almost 1,400 inmates. They need to groom too and get their hair cut.
Well, I'm going off on a topic here or a tangent, I guess, but I would assume that criminals who had the skill of being a hair, what do you call a haircutist, barber,
Barber,
uh,
yeah,
a haircutist,
yeah.
before getting, whatever the crime is that got him into jail. I'm sure it's a therapy, or it's something to be able to pass down that skill set to somebody who might be getting out. I'm assuming, if somebody
If
murders somebody and is a
well,
haircut, they're going to be able to
if they
pass that
do
down.
it, if they do it, if they are allowed to do it, because that's also a thing. You know what I mean? You have to be allowed to cut hair. You have to be allowed to do that because
Because of
we have
scissors.
people. Well, we have people. Well, they don't have scissors; they just get clippers. We have people that pick out what inmates can do what jobs. Like they actually classify them as they're safe to take out and allow out of the cells and have the responsibility of working. And then, of course, it's the flip side. You screw up, they snatch that freaking ability away from you. Ha ha! You had a little bit of freedom, and now you just pooped it out. Like it's a whole thing. It's stuff that people don't know happens. And it's like, yes, this inmate has to have self worth because this is a human being. You've locked him away for 75 years. He's never getting out. When does the punishment stop? What do you think? They're just going to sit in a cell and read a Bible? That's not how prison works. That's not how prison works. They have to live in a way that keeps their sanity for some of them, and also gives them a worth. And some people are getting out of prison. I mean, would you want someone who was locked up at, I'll do a number, 25 years old, and they didn't do anything for the next 20 years? Didn't pick up a job skill, didn't read a book, didn't. So now they're coming out as a 25-year-old. They might have gone to college. Who knows what they've done, right? But you get a 20 years, you actually do 20 years and you get out and you've done nothing in 2 decades. Or you learn to become a welder. You learn to write computer program. I don't know what else. What else? There's a lot of stuff they do, including continued education. Uh, a guy who was a friend of mine before he got locked up, and who I haven't spoken to since he got locked up, wrote like 3 books while he was in. Like you're given opportunity, and I think they should have opportunities because some people will be reformed. You can't just throw human beings away.
Okay,
And
that's
even if you do,
interesting. Go ahead.
yeah, and even if you do, someone has to take care of them. Someone has to be there to feed, clothe, medical attention, making sure everything works right as part of maintenance. That's my job. So there's still going to be civilians that have to be next to and work adjacent to these people that you want to throw away.
Yeah, unless you want to be that country that just murders people for making a mistake.
Yeah.
But even then, you'd have to have people waiting in line to get murdered. So you'd have to have people controlling that. And that'd be a pretty heinous place to be if everybody was getting murdered.
And I agree with leave my freedom be. Yeah. De escalation is a whole thing. And then again, a lot of cops are afraid. A lot of cops are afraid. Um, and that pushes them to make horrible decisions especially when they have authority, and then you throw authority and a weapon. A lot of bad things could happen. That's why a lot of psych- listen, as bad as you think cops are, could be worse because they do a lot of psychological evaluations and stuff and screenings. It could be a whole hell of a lot worse when they drop requirements. You see it right now. We're in a drought when it comes to finding people to do the job. Ever since that defund the police campaign and turned people against law enforcement, people don't want to do the job. So they're accepting people, recruits that weren't acceptable before for a variety of reasons. Oh, and the last thing you want is inmates that are institutionalized because we've seen that and it's horrible. You have people who've been locked up so long they have no idea how to cope outside of that regimented system.
Well,
Like they
that's what I
don't
was going to say
know.
before.
Oh, go ahead, sir.
I was going to say before that when you were describing, yeah, I think you said the 25-year-old or whatever. Uh,
Hmm.
so I was just listening again to a conversation, and they were again a different conversation, but another military interview type of thing, and they were talking about, or actually, I was reading something, but whatever, same thing, military thing, where you think about a kid who's probably 18, 19, probably 18 though, unless you've heard around for a little bit, you go in right when you're done with high school, so you're 18, and some people go in before that. So you go in, and first thing you do is basic and some training, and then you get a job and a skill, and you go out and do that. And depending on how long you're in, so one enlistment is typically 4 years nowadays, I think, still. Maybe
Hmm.
it's a
Yeah.
2 year stint, but typically it's 4 years. Sometimes it's a couple of years with some reserve obligation or something like that. It kind of depends on how much money the country has and what kind of stuff they got going on. But if we're just talking like regular service, not guard or part time type of stuff, like I say, you're usually like 18 or 19 by the time you go in, and then you go do whatever you're going to do there for a while. And there's definitely a culture within the military, and it's all about first learning it and then living through it. And if you are in it for any length of time over one enlistment, you probably figured it out, right? You either thrive in it or can survive through it, right? But it's definitely it's its own culture, it's its own thing, and it's unique because it has to be, and it's what's the word, like any family or like any community, it's self nurturing because it needs to be. Again, it's like the only people that can understand what it's like to be
Hmm.
military wives and families are military wives and families. Once you're out of the military, go fuck yourself. Like, you're out of the military now. And I'm not even in no harsh words. Like, sometimes they kind of help you transition out depending on the units and the career path and
Hmm.
how long you've been in the branch and shit. But for the most part,
Ah.
here's your culture. You got in when you're 18. You stayed in for a number of years. Now they're like, no, go back to society. And that's exactly what you were kind of saying. Go back to society. Well, what the fuck? They've never
Hmm.
been in society. They left when they were 18 and did this completely alien thing, at least something that only 1% of people do. And in this
Hmm.
case, military is 1%. I don't know what I think our fucking criminal system is bigger than that, isn't it?
Yeah.
So that's sad.
Uh, I don't know. Is it? I think
I don't
there's
want to think
two
about it because
something.
people go in and out just kind of like the military. You're in for a year
Oh,
or two or four, and sometimes people are in for longer. But I want to think about
I
it.
think there's like, yeah, it's
But
like two
again, it's
million inmates. Yeah, but go ahead.
okay, but you get the idea. It's kind of parallel.
Yeah.
Like, you go into it, you're like, say, institutionalized, and then just different ways, and then it's the same way. It's like now you get out the other end, and if we're good, and if it's a good system, or you're in a good path or whatever, like, yeah, you get some kind of transitional help or
Hmm.
something to anticipate, a little hand or a railing or something to help you get out there, but or maybe meet somebody who understands your situation, so you're not by yourself out there. But for the most part, you're by yourself out there, and that's something that, again, like, we allow to happen because we don't not do it. Does that make sense? Like, we don't do something
So
about it or
there,
allow something to be done, right?
there are programs out there for inmates, and they get that information before they get out. Like they are giving that information. Again, I work in a prison, not a jail, so it might be different in those. I'm just coming from a state prison environment. They're given a lot of information. They know about a whole bunch of programs out there that can help them out. Plus, no one kicks them out the door there without the chance to learn this stuff on their own. Like a lot of the ignorance is willful. You know what I mean? I'm not going to those classes. I'm not talking to those people. I'm not dealing with that. Well, then, bro, yeah, you gonna be back. Like you're not utilizing programs out there. So when I talk about the guys that because we have inmate plumbers, we have inmate electricians, we have inmate welders. There are all those programs that are out there. We got dudes that work in medical. Um, I mean, and we definitely have inmates that prepare food. So you have an option to do a lot of this stuff when you got out because you had the experience while you were in. Some don't take it. Same thing with the military. I was a computer programmer. I got out and was ready to live my civilian life, you know? Like let's do this. I didn't take up any programs. It was weird getting out and learning to be a fat nasty civilian again. And if anybody was in the Marine Corps, that's one of the things and how people talk, right? About stinky civilians. But it was like I had to learn to chill out and not be so intense, which I didn't think I was. I thought I was a pretty laid back Marine until I became a civilian again. And people were like, "Man, you're intense." And I'm like, "Y'all ain't met intense mother effers yet."
Yeah, seriously, you don't even know. But the thing is, you went in again when you didn't go in when you're like 25 or whatever. You went in out of high
Nope.
school, right?
17.
So
Yep, 17 years old.
you don't remember. Like I did guard, so I never went in nothing. I went away to
Hmm.
it and came back from it. Like I never had to go live it. I went and visited it a bunch of times. That's about it. And then got paid to go visit it a bunch of times. That's really what I consider it.
Yeah,
So,
that's true.
but going in full time and everything, like yeah, that's a whole different story. Like say you don't really get a chance to you've observed adult life, but you never got a chance to be an adult yet. You went in again, depending on how many, even if you're only in a couple of years, you do miss some of that transition out of high school or out of college. The transition that like the I don't know whatever everybody else gets when they get their jobs and their first experience with jobs. I can't imagine your first experience with jobs. Uh, the difference between somebody whose first experience with jobs is like, oh, I don't like my boss because he or she is a jerk, and therefore I'm gonna go home and whine to my parents or my friends, and they're gonna tell you to tell your boss to go shove it, and you go work somewhere else. Nothing like that happens in the military. Like maybe something horrible happens and somebody gets counted for some crime, but aside from crimes, like you don't like your boss, guess what? You don't like your boss for 4 years or something, like 2 years maybe. Like just
Hmm.
live with that. And when you come out of 2 years of that, you're just a different person. You're able to cope. You know what I mean? Like you're going to have a boss who sucks, and you're like, yeah, I have a boss that sucks. And whereas somebody else is like, oh, I had a boss that sucks, so I quit that job. I had a boss that sucks, so I quit that job. They never had a boss that sucks because they quit their jobs every time it happens. They different people, right? They're going to be different people in life. But I guess that's a whole
Yep.
other topic too.
Yeah, but it's just funny. It's fun to think about sometimes because it is a different. Okay, let's roll this back around to firearms because when we're talking about it, gun people, for the most part, like think a certain way, and I'm like, dude, there's a lot of different perspectives. We just talked about one. Somebody getting out of the military, someone getting out of prison. They have a totally different perspective of life than you did because you got out of high school and started your first civilian job, and you never got in trouble, and you never had to live in these two extremes of someone else controlling every aspect of your life. I was asked by an organization, could I get them in contact with whoever works in the prison system to try to get inmates to vote? They wanted to, be able to get people that got out of jail or got out of prison the ability to vote. And I'm like, you sure? Because this was a group associated with a gun rights group organization. I'm like, bro, dudes just getting out of prison aren't going to be pro 2A. Just letting you know that right now. They believe in owning a firearm for them, not for you, but okay. And then I come to find out in New Jersey, part of the release thing is they register you to vote. You pretty much have to fight with them not to be registered to vote. You have to say no. Like they try to register you in the state of New Jersey to vote when you get out of prison. Didn't know that.
Well, I guess it kind of makes sense because
Well,
I don't know.
yeah.
I doubt they're going to vote Republican.
Yep. And if you're in a heavy Democratic state, makes sense, right? These guys are getting out. Have them vote for you. You've already fed them, clothed them, and housed them. for a significant part of their lives. Kind of know which way they're going to vote. And I went ahead and saved gun facts to my phone on my home screen so I can actually look it up and be able to actually make let people give them what do you call that source material from some of the things I say.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what's nice about it, especially when you're writing or, presenting something, is having source material. Because knowing it is one thing if you're just having a conversation. But yeah, he does a great job of, and he's all about data. So he's like uh, John Lott in that respects, that he's interested in data. But then, unlike John Lott, who writes about it all the time and then says, goes on interviews occasionally, this guy's all about infographics, visualization, and having I don't know what you call, like, the rebuttals. Is that the right word? Having
Hmm.
the reactions to the different typical
Wow.
concerns that the antis have. And he's got a lot
Dude,
of those.
this
Like I
is
say, we've been
awesome.
doing that for
Yeah.
years.
I'm just scrolling through and I'm like, oh, myth, and then fact, myth, fact, myth, fact. Nice.
with what do they call that? Source.
Sources.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And then a lot of times
Because
it's
it,
multiple sources, and he'll put them in there. Like you were saying, like, this study will say that 300,000. This study will say 1.2. Obviously, the people who think this way want to go with the 1.2, and the people that want to think this way go with the smaller number. And he just presents it that way, so that now whoever's looking at it from either side can go, okay, now I know where the spectrum is, and I know who's going to be pushing it this way on the spectrum, who's going to be pushing it this way. But if the spectrum is 20%, who cares? But if the spectrum is 80% of a number or something, then it's like, yeah, okay, it kind of matters which side
so
they're going to lean on.
so last week we had Mike Sedini on the podcast on the Locked, Cocked, and Unfiltered podcast. And that was one of the things he said. He's been saying, you can probably find one of his reels on YouTube. He was like, look, we pro 2A people that are actually speaking to others, we proselytize the pro 2A. But sometimes we get caught up in things and we say things like, well, we don't need red flag laws because we have laws already on the books that do what the red flag laws do. All right, what are the laws? What are they called? Be able to go to that next level. Don't just say the surface thing. Know what's below the surface thing if you actually want to have conversations. If you just want to repeat talking points, then you're not having a conversation. You're not able to take it deeper than that. And if that's you, then that's you. Just don't have that. Like, don't pretend that you actually having an open conversation if you don't know deeper. You need to know deeper. So as I'm looking at this, because I'm scrolling and I can't pay too much attention to it, about this gunfacts.info, this gives you that deeper thing. Look at it, check it out, and at least have a way to back up your facts and tell them what's beneath that. What's the alternative? What's the other thing? Where can they find it themselves? That
And for
helps
what it,
because you're not. Go ahead.
no, I'm interrupting you. Go ahead.
Oh, because we're trying to have a conversation. We're not trying to do point counterpoint for the most part. Maybe that's what you want to do at one time, but most of this is had through honest conversations, not waiting for the other person to stop talking so you can punch them in the face with another fact. Let's talk. What are your concerns? Blah 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 blah. All right, got you. My concerns are the same, but understand the way you're going about this doesn't jive with how things really happen in real life. Did you know 63% of gun violence is suicide? I'm like, they're conflating that for a reason. And now you're having a conversation, not just pointing things out.
Like, they're presenting it to you like this for a reason, because it's hardly even an issue unless you magnify, or whatever, right? You get into
Hmm.
the issue.
Now you can throw statistics out, but don't make statistics your entire conversation because that's not how real people talk.
What I like about the gun info approach and the site itself, because we've cited the website on our podcast, and it used to be a segment of our show for a while, and I've used it as a resource for a long time. That's why I built Minuteman in the way I have, because that already existed. Like his almost conversational, his like topical driven approach is excellent for the activist or the interested gun owner who wants to have an effective conversation with each other so that we get better at it, which is definitely a big part of it. But really, so that we can have conversations with the people who hate our guns and our property and our rights, our rights and our property, say hate us a little bit. But it's because they're manipulated all the time. And the real conversation, I guess what I was going to add when I was interrupting you there, was that the times in my experience over the years since 2015, doing stuff online as an activist, predominantly as an activist, is that the times that I did have people approach or show up to the chats or whatever, that were maybe, but whatever, I don't know what the word is, like indifferent, maybe, like we're still on the fence for sure. Like they were not one side or the other, and had never been one side or the other, if that makes a difference, right? Like people that were just coming at it as like, and this was, I think this was even before the bullshit of 2020. This was just as an activist and being a channel that was large enough to probably attract some views when YouTube was still pointed at me because I was big. And then now talking about, issues instead of toys and tools. So, I probably had more viewers back then that would just like casually get, curious about what the thumbnail was doing or whatever. And when those folks would come around, having something like gun facts where you could just present them with non-biased uh, source material for a conversation, whatever the topic might be, that had the
Hmm.
best effect or the most positive results. And I'm talking like a couple, like probably six at the most. And so it's not like a shit ton of people. But for what it's worth, there was probably about six people that I can think of off the top of my head that came to the conversations, the same way like Woods or somebody out there is just, having a conversation, or like New York Outcast, just a person that comes into the chat and is, these are people that we know because they've been around for a long time. But, just somebody that came around and they stick around for a while. But instead of, they were never going to just join the pro gun side, from where they came from because they had no reason to. Otherwise, they would have been pro gun, right? So the reason they came to it
Hmm.
is because they were not attached. And I think if my presentation or if the conversation would have been echo chambery, they would have moved on, sensing it was just not going anywhere. It was just patting each other on the back all the time. But because it was kind of an open conversation, talking about how we would talk to the other side, I think they were interested, intrigued, I guess, by that approach. And then once they saw that we were looking for sources, and I mean, we don't do exactly like that website where every time we say something, we're citing the source, but we try not to just throw, what's the word, like, what's the word for just throwing shit out there without, without actually having something that it's based off of. I don't think many of our conversations, at least I've been around, um, have been those kind of conversations. I think that has, I don't know, turns. I'm gonna say, I don't want to say turn people because I have no idea if they're still even anti-gun or pro-gun or what they are, but at least it brought these people who were curious into our conversations, and they left at their own pace. They didn't flee because they were offended by what we were saying or dissatisfied with our, conversations. So anyway, I don't know if that's coming
Yeah, it's
through, but I
it's
really appreciate that concept of what he's got on his website.
yeah. One of the hardest things is again at diversity shoots is when I know my audience is mostly pro gun, and I'm kind of preaching to the choir. So I have to be careful because they're still anti-gun people or people on the fence, and they just expect you to freaking just bumper sticker logic after bumper sticker logic. So I try to bring up the other side's point of view and then talk about it from ours. Like, I understand that you want to stop mass shootings. I want to stop mass shootings. Everyone in this room wants to stop mass shootings. But how do we do it? It's important because just doing something is worse than doing nothing because it gives you a false sense of security. and then we have a conversation because again, the antis don't expect that, and the pro gun people kind of don't expect it either. They're like, "Oh, yeah, yeah, it's how you have a conversation. You try to meet in the middle somewhere, actually, and have a conversation, not compromise your values. Just get on the same page of understanding." Because I'm crazy pro. I'm almost insanely pro gun. So you're not going to get me to compromise on the Second Amendment, but we can still have a conversation.
Yeah, I'd like to get to where there'd be like a place. I don't know if you'd what you'd call it, like a but a place, like a show or a group of people that offer a welcoming environment for it or something, but a place where we could have conversations with people on the other side and have real, open-minded people. I don't want to say on the other side, just conversations with open-minded people who don't have an opinion on firearms or maybe do have an opposite opinion, and then have some attempts at changing their minds. Because I do believe that we're correct, and that a lot of the a lot of the animosity towards firearms or firearms owners or ownership is due to, again, I keep saying it, misunderstandings and on assumptions that are just aren't there. And we've got so much precedent now. I mean, that's the best part. I mean, I can remember when we first started seeing concealed carry, and it was kind of neat, right? Hey, wow, people can conceal carry now. That's cool. I didn't even ever remember thinking, how long will that be around? It was just like, oh, that's cool. It just seemed natural, because everybody kind of carried anyway. It's just that now there wasn't a law telling us we couldn't or we shouldn't, I
Hmm.
guess. Because nothing says you can't. They just say you're going to get in trouble if you do. So they just took away the consequences of when every once in a while somebody would get stopped or something and be like, hey, why are you carrying a gun? So anyway, that being said, it's now every single state, 50 states, you can carry concealed, or at least it's the ability to, the possibility of. And in whatever, 29 states, you can now carry no matter what without a permit. So, I mean, without even getting into the whole thing about the suppressors, the Hearing Protection Act being in its second time through Congress, so at a national level being challenged from the NFA, the bump stocks and everything they imply, and all the other stuff we talked about earlier today, all of this stuff, it's just the ideal time to have conversations with the other side. And I don't think it would be like with Joe Rogan type people or Bill Maher type people. I think I'd much rather see people at the level of maybe you and Katie and like Brooke Cheney, like people that are actual people that have done stuff and been around for a while, but competent. And then I don't know who the people are on the other side, but people who are confidently against guns on the other side and actually
Hmm.
have an environment, like I say, some sort of a place, some kind of an environment where everybody could get together. And they could probably try to do the same, like try to challenge you, like you scare you into thinking that kids are dying from guns. Because really, what are they going to do? Like, oh, here, let me challenge your understanding of what a kid is. Like, are they going to try to change your mind on what a child is so that you think a child is
Hmm.
18 years old? Like, that's the only thing they
Yeah.
could possibly do because we just got into it. We all know the reality of it. But anyway, I really think that would be an interesting thing. Now, here's the question. I'm just sitting here talking on a Saturday afternoon. Is that ever going to happen? Is that even a possibility? Is that like something that culture would ever find interesting enough for someone to pursue it and then make it happen?
All right. This is what happens. Okay, because I do one thing, right? But we have Valentina, excuse me. She does another thing. Valentina, she runs Naturally Armed 76, I think that's what it is. Uh, she's on my page all the time. I'm probably going to repost her events. So she is a black woman and she has black women come out to her events. She doesn't host them all at a range. So you have women from the urban environment in New Jersey there. So they're going to quote some of the same talking points that the anti-gunner support because they've been spoon-fed that crap around them their entire lives, right? So she can have that conversation in that room that's not arranged, so they don't feel like they're jumped, right? They don't feel like they're surrounded by the enemy and they can't ask a question. But it's in an environment about firearms, but it's not a firearm environment. So she gets to actually uh, answer these questions and have these conversations. Me, I host my event at the gun range, but I'm getting them there. So these conversations are being had, and they're being had by people that have actually taken that step out of their comfort zone to have these conversations. Hardcore anti-gun people don't want a real conversation because you're going to blow holes all through their bullshit immediately, because we know the real numbers behind it. We know why you speak the way you do. We know why you say young people and not children. We know why you use certain words. We know why you handpick certain cities. So yes, someone who's educated in firearms, in the statistics and the numbers behind them, are going to eat them alive, and they don't want that. But people that go to Valentina's thing, they just repeating what they heard, and you can actually have a conversation with them and go, you need to check your sources because they need you to fear guns. Hollywood does not know firearms. They perpetrate a bunch of myths and they perpetrate a bunch of fears for a reason. The people that ran Keanu Reeves through Butler, Taryn Butler School, no facts about firearms. But they aren't the same people that make your shows, your 1 hour weekly shows. Those people don't seem to know anything about firearms, or they're pushing a narrative and they don't want to know anything about firearms. There's a narrative being pushed to keep you to fear firearms. They want you to fear suppressors. They want you to fear short barrel rifles. They want you to fear full auto, and they will continually surround you by it, from social media to movies to television, everything, to even works of fiction that you read. They won't know anything about firearms, and they'll be pushing an agenda, and it's there for a reason. And when you tell people that, I'm going, we're going to take you to a range, and that's what Valentina does. Like, we're here next week, we're going to the range, and we'll have you shoot some of these guns. So the reason I really like that my guys had FRT triggers in their guns is because we go FRT trigger, 100% legal. Full auto, $200 tax stamp, illegal in the state of New Jersey. Well, when we were running the event in Pennsylvania, I just ran my FRT trigger through 30 rounds before freaking Thompson can run through 20 rounds. The Thompson is a submachine gun. It's supposed to be scary and it's banned in New Jersey. This FRT trigger, 100% legal. No one's committed a crime with it. No legal purchaser of an FRT trigger has actually committed a violent crime with an FRT trigger. Only one person that I know of, there may be others since then, has used their registered full auto firearm in a crime since 1934. I'm like, so they're banning stuff for a reason. They're banning full auto in New Jersey because it's dangerous, but FRT trigger is 100% legal in New Jersey because it's not dangerous, and no one's committed a crime with either one of them in the state of New Jersey ever. This is the ridiculousness of these gun laws. And then when you talk to them like that, they're like, holy crap. Yeah, you've been lied to. There have been 12 drive-by shootings, like the machine gun shooting crap that you see in the movies about the gangsters, 1934 and Prohibition and all that crap. There were 12 during the entire decade of Prohibition. There were 12. That's it. Other than
But
that, it
they
was regular crime.
but they were in every gangster movie, maybe multiple times in a gangster movie.
Multiple times in gangster movie and every TV show for almost 100 years.
You know what also drives me nuts is now that, I mean, we're getting into topic tangents again, but influence of culture, of media in culture, and you get at the same time you're seeing gangster movies and radio shows and television
Mm-hmm.
and everything else. Again, with glamorizing and making it seem like gangsters running around killing each other constantly, which, they can, like you
Mm-hmm.
say, they did occasionally. But anyway, then you also get those depictions of the old west where there's gunfights all the time, and
Mm-hmm.
most of the time, even though there's gunfights all the time, it's one good guy with a gun, bunch of bad guys with guns, and regular townsfolk only pull out a rifle once in a while when the script needs it or the plot needs it.
Mm-hmm.
But most of the time they're just ducking under chairs and getting shot indiscriminately, being collateral
Mm-hmm.
deaths or injuries depending on what the script needs, right? And then, of course, every time they walk into town, sheriffs, they're taking your gun away. And if you're a lawful, good person, you're taking your gun off and you're giving it to the sheriff. And that's how often did that happen in TV shows? I'm lucky that, I don't know, so I'm lucky or maybe it was deliberate, but none of that ever even, I never even acknowledged that. I always was like, yeah, we give them the one gun and then I'd have like four other guns on or something, like, you know what I mean? Like,
Uh-huh.
and I always just assumed that like that's what I was doing, like if I had to do that. But aside from that, like I'm thinking everybody else out there, somebody said something other, before about a lot of people just don't care about this stuff. That's probably the case. Like if somebody's really never
Uh-huh.
had a reason to be, I don't know, challenged or want to be free and they're happy to be caged, I guess, for lack of a better word, then maybe they're okay with the idea of like letting the cagers keep the keys or whatever, however you want to say it. But, once you've been out, you don't want to
Most
get in a cage and all that.
uh, how's this? Most people don't know they're in the matrix, bro.
Yeah, no, that's a good point.
Most people don't know they're in the matrix, so there is no reason to escape. Why would I want a gun? Why will I need a gun? Why are you guys making such a big deal about this? Nobody uses guns anyway. Yeah, a lot of people do. You just don't know it. But hey, man, you're in the matrix. What am I supposed to say? You got to take the damn red pill, bro. I forget the pill colors, by the way.
It's the red one is the, I can't remember either. I was just said red one's a good one. I don't remember. I think the blue one you stay in reality, and the red one you go to the, you get out of reality. You get out of the, you fall into the water or
Get out of the
whatever.
matrix. Yeah, you get out of the matrix. You come out.
The blue
That's
one
why they talk about people.
you just hang out, take the red pill. I think that's how it's supposed to be. It's been a while
Yeah, yeah.
since I
Take
watched
the
that
red pill to get out. Yeah, me too.
one. Maybe I'll watch it.
Um, but 100%. It annoys me, but I understand. And luckily, I was with one of the guys. I had two guys working under me. One was a 23-year-old when he came there, and he's a conservative and pro gun. And I got him to get his firearms ID card, his pistol purchase permit. I turned him on to getting his firearms, and the other kid was like, "I don't need any of that. I'm from South Jersey. If I need a gun, I'll get a gun. Like, I'm not really into the politics thing." And we'd had a discussion. He goes, "I'm kind of out of it, dude. I don't care." And it used to get me frustrated. He's like, "How do you not care about your rights being taken?" They don't see it because they don't use it. Don't see it, don't use it, doesn't affect them in any way. They think, okay, cool.
And that's one of those things where what you do for sure. But again, people have to seek you out. You're one guy, so I think there needs to be more than just Tony. He can't do it himself.
Hmm.
But in addition to the projects like yours that are out there similar, not that there's a bunch, just changing the culture, like having some TV shows. Because for a little while there, we had some gun TV shows. What's his
Hmm.
face, the weirdo guy who ended up being a weirdo, would make guns, and then there was the one guy who ended up being a weirdo who had a gun shop. But they noticed they never went to Dragon Man. Oh, actually, they did go to Dragon Man's. I don't want to get into that because that was a literal tragedy. That was a sad thing. But so in other words, that one didn't go through, and that one would have been the only one of the few examples of a good firearms thing. I'm probably forgetting one, but for a while there was some firearms shows, and then they all turned into knife
Yeah.
shows. It was more politically correct or whatever to make knife shows. I think it would be cool to see more positive, uh, you know, what's the word, like focus on the industry and just the community, the stuff that we do, so that people know that it's not just violence, it's not just all crime. Again, the narrative, something before, I didn't want to interrupt you, but one of the things that the antis do is they create the narrative, not just in the fact or whatever, but they make it, they're like, well, you either like kids or you hate guns. There's worse ones than that, but, or there's more than that, I
Yeah.
should say. That's like the worst of them. But, like, well, you either have to accept that blah, 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 or the consequences of that. And it's like, no, you idiots. Like, either you're ignoring this intentionally or you're not even aware of the fact that there's like, a myriad of options here. The most common and the most, used one is this one. And it's one of those things where when it's not challenged, if we're not bringing stuff up, that's how they move that over to the window. They'll say, well, these people hate children and they love their guns so much that, the gun lobby is paying them to hate children. So that, and if we don't challenge that ever, And that's all it takes to challenge them is to be normal. Just go be ourselves in front of people, and over, lots and lots of us, so that they figure out like, oh, wait a minute, because here's what's going to happen, right? They're going to go, oh, gun owners are super boring. Like, why am I afraid of them? They're super boring. They're probably like more boring than some of the other. Like, we're more boring than motorcycle people, I bet, in general,
Oh
right?
yeah.
Like, we're super boring. Like, we're probably as boring as historians or somebody like that. We're probably as boring as like bakers. Actually, bakers are probably more fun because you get, bakery at the end of it. You get bread or cookies or something. Um, but pretty much we just go mind our business and quarrel amongst ourselves and buy stuff. We buy a bunch of stuff and we enjoy ourselves, but for the most part, we're trying to be quieter and trying to leave people alone and go do stuff by ourselves. And like I say, I think that if we figured out a way to just make that the culture aware of that, they'd leave us alone because they figure out like, oh, most of guns has nothing to do with violence or any of this other stuff. The part that gets focused on is the violence and the negative stuff. I
Yeah.
don't know if we're doing anything effective at this point. We're just kind of rambling. I do appreciate the
Yep.
amount of people that are out there. We got lots of comments coming in, but we haven't really been answering very many gun questions. I think we're just talking. I guess it's appropriate. We are in a political time right now, and I mean, I'm going to go ahead and say it, even though I nag all the time about shit like this. But we're in a time when we have a lot of influence right now with the whatever it's called, big beautiful bill or whatever, going through with this Hearing Protection Act, which removes suppressors from the NFA, meaning no tax, and they're not on the NFA. You don't have to ask permission for them. And I don't know what the Short Act does, to be honest. Is it still going through? Is the reason we're worried about the HPAs because that's the only one that got affected? I'm assuming Short
I
is
think
also
that
going
might
through.
be the. I don't know.
So, assuming that Short is also going through, then again, this is a time when we have a muscle as far as the way our country works, where we contact our representatives when we want them to represent us. I won't call them lawmakers and I won't call them policymakers because they're fucking representatives. That's all they do. So they might do those things, but that's not what I'm paying them to do. I'm paying them to represent me. So this is one of those muscles, or one of those times we have an opportunity to flex this muscle. And GOA does a pretty good job. Like, they're the only one that does a real national job of getting people to campaign, or what's the word? They're the only ones that run campaigns to get people to do stuff like uh, uh, call or write, right, like on a regular basis. I'm sure some of the local organizations, I've seen quite a few individuals efforting, and that's really what it takes, in my opinion. When I've seen the most success over the years, it's when the regular person just adds it to their feed, and then so and so says, oh, if somebody's posting it, maybe I should post it too. It looks like we're winning. Or like, we, you know what I mean? When somebody regular starts posting like a number to a switchboard, it's one of two things. It's a snowball. We're about to win with the biggest numbers we've ever won. Or the other side, we're hanging on with just a few fingernails and we need everybody on board. But either way, we exercise that muscle. And it's only times we exercise it. And I'm not saying this is a dire thing or nothing, or it's like we need this, it's an emergency, but it's a fucking great time to do it. Like, why not? There's no other stress going on right now. It'll be a minute or two before they orchestrate some kind of anti bullshit news media bullshit against it. The best things they can come up with is that suppressors are used in crime somehow, even though they're never used in crime except for in movies. So I think right now we have a real good opportunity, and it's frustrating that we don't, I don't know, have something that organizes us, or some sort of like chip in our brains that makes us turn into drone armies or something when this kind of opportunity is here. But uh, I'm just going to voice that frustration that right now we're in a pretty neat opportunity, a pretty neat point in time for this opportunity. I don't know. Maybe I'm super optimistic, but I think we could see it happen.
We have to push it. It's not going to happen with us just sitting there going, "This would be nice." Like, we're going to have to push this to make it happen.
So I kind of wanted to end it because we're at 3 hours, and I don't want to keep Tony here every week for like this has been like our third week, I think, for over 3 hours. But
Yeah.
we're getting a lot of comments. So Lee My Freedom said, "Be honest, does anyone really think that New York or California will ever be changed?" Yes,
Yes.
100%. 100% I have that. Why? Because Illinois. Because of Illinois. Illinois is just the same as New York or California. There's no difference. Washington has become that way. New Jersey is that way. There's the 9 states that are that way. Illinois is one of them. Illinois has concealed carry, and that was the same question was being asked in 2013. Does anyone really think Illinois will ever get concealed carry when we would sit there dreaming about 50 states of concealed carry? And then boom, it happened. So it happens quickly and it happens in a rush because most of the stuff is 50 to 49, right? It's like 51 to 49 votes off the half the time. Every once in a while it gets a little bit, one way or the other. But most of the time it's either gridlock, like the antis are just not going to let it happen, and then something changes in the state and it's no longer that gridlock, or something just gives way and they're not paying attention. But I think it's, yeah, definitely the case. California, I'm paying more attention to because we live right here, and New York is way over there, and I don't, just don't have much interest in New York. California, I go to once in a while, so I pay attention over here. California seems like they're about to go bankrupt, right? I mean, I don't know. I'm not paying attention. It just seems like they're not handling their money very well, and I think that's the wiggle for California. I think that there's been Republicans in California before, and there'll be Republicans in California again. That whatever the stars that align that pulled it to be as whatever liberal, I guess you could say, for so long, won't be there forever. And when that changes, California is a massive state with food, with industry, with culture, fuck, with everything. Like California is massive. And once they're cooking, like California is a force to be reckoned with. They could be their own country, right? Easily. Like they're not just fucking around. They could be their own country, just like Texas or something. Um,
Hmm.
so I think, yeah, California, I mean, I'm no sage or nothing. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but I wouldn't be surprised if it happens with like an election or two. They're being run by that jerk right now, right? And he's can't be there
Hmm.
forever. And then New York, I just don't know. I mean, I know people, a couple of people, right, from New York. I'd like to think it's the same kind of thing, but
Well,
problem is New
hold
York
on.
has snow, so they're just a rugged people. California is not a rugged like New York, so I don't know. It's just different up there.
Well, New York has changed. I mean, the the reason we have constitutional carry in many states is because of New York change, because of the ruling out of the Supreme Court about New York.
There you go.
There's, they're carrying in New York. These pro 2A wins we've had have come from places like California, Illinois, New York, New Jersey. These places are changing. I mean, hopefully they run Kamala again in 2028 because she damn near turned New Jersey red. That's how bad of a candidate she was. The New Jersey almost went red. Um, so yes, it's working. We're changing. People are tired of stuff. Everybody didn't forget what the mostly peaceful protests were about. They were people that realized they were on their own and they're not playing that game anymore. In places like New Jersey, New York, a large number of women, all right, not dudes, women that are coming to my events with other women that they're bringing along are out of Philly and cities in New Jersey and New York City, and of the 5 boroughs are coming to arm up, are coming to learn about firearms. And while they're there, they're meeting other women and they're talking about becoming self sufficient, growing food, and doing all that. All those people, that Venn diagram of self sufficiency, gun owner, and person that grows their own food and has a small business, all of those are combining at diversity shoots because we're having these conversations and people feel open to be able to come here. And again, it's not like you said, it's not just me. It's other groups and organizations like myself, grassroots, face to face, making this stuff happen. Maj, KD, uh, well,
We never had
Maj.
that dynamic before. Like we never had um, anything. We had a couple of organizations, and then they grew and grew, and now we've got a web of them, and now we're about to see a generational web of them, right? Like
Hmm.
it's like they'll spawn subgroups, and new people will come in and start their groups after, in the footsteps of these the 2015 era.
Yep. So we're making a difference. We're slowly doing it. Everything didn't happen overnight. We're moving that Overton window, but we have to jump on opportunities when we have them. We haven't been. We're getting better. If you want to support me in the work I do, go to diversityshoot.com. It helps. We're about to become a 501c3. You noticed that, right? Rolled right
Good
into it. We're
transition.
about
Yeah,
to
okay.
become a charitable organization, and we're going to be selling swag. Look, hit me up. I should have started off with this. What kind of stuff you want to see? You want T-shirts? You want other things? You want things like patches? Do you want coins? Challenge coins? Uh,
Tuxedos.
I'd like to. I'd like to know what.
Classy swag. I want a tuxedo.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, T-shirts with tuxedos on them.
Oh, there
Hey,
you go.
I'm all about class, baby. But let me know what you want because we want to make that move. We want to make it fun. We want to make donating something you do easy, and also you can see. Again, I got a decade of work behind me, and I got so much more stuff in front of me that I want to accomplish, including promoting doing diversity shoots in other states run by other people. But I have to be here, and I have to get a good base of funding going so we know we can go to these places and make things happen. Because what I might do, I have to figure out a way that I can actually get paid. Because if we're setting up places in other states while I still have this job that I haven't retired from, um, I want to be able to at least do it without worrying about feeding my family. You know what I mean? Like hosting events, fine, but growing is going to take me going there, establishing and meeting people, and trial and error, getting it going in other states so people can see how it's supposed to run. So I have missions and things I want to accomplish with the Second is for Everyone. Not only diversity shoots, but also start bringing games back, events back, shooting events. Because I've done, I don't know, I've talked about it before, something called the Minuteman Challenge competitions to get people out of the house and shooting the guns they own. Also, I want to get people out of the house and to participate in hunting for the first time, different kinds. Get you to be that, see what it's like. Because picking up a new skill, because you're going to shoot stuff in the apocalypse, but you've never hunted before. I want to try to change the hunting culture is different. It used to be brought between, your dad and granddad, take the kid out, usually the son. Well, now it's older. It's a dude in his 30s and 40s that are going hunting for the first time. And I've talked to organizations and they're open to willing to work with me so we can bring people together in New Jersey, New York, Pennsylvania, and take people hunting for the first time that have never been.
Like diversity hunts.
100%. I'm not going to call it diversity hunts, but yep, pretty much. Hunting is for everyone.
There you go. Hunting is for everyone. Huh.
All right. So again, diversityshoot.com. If you want to do my social media, Simon Says Train on Instagram, Simon Says Train on Facebook. The second is for everyone on Facebook, and the second for everyone on X. You can see me on any of that. Also, Locked, Cocked, Unfiltered is one podcast we do. Please join our YouTube family. On again, because we need a certain number of people, so we are live from YouTube. It allows us to broadcast there. So please, if you can help us out, really appreciate it. I'm also on Gun and Gear Review podcast. Actually, you probably won't see us on YouTube. We got kicked off last week
What
because
happened?
they thought it, oh, they saw an empty chassis, called it a gun, and said we had guns on and booted us. It's like didn't have a firearm, didn't have a barrel, didn't have a magazine, didn't have a trigger. It's a gun shaped object, wasn't a gun.
The one
So
week I was out camping and not watching is when you get booted live. Dang it. I had to miss it.
yeah, so last week we did Instagram. Monday we'll probably be on Instagram and X. So I doubt if we're on, but we'll get back on because again we
Rumble.
didn't do anything wrong. We
Yeah.
haven't done Rumble yet, but yeah,
Sometimes I'll go back and look at it with a human or whatever and then turn off the strike or whatever their punishment is.
yeah. It was like there's nothing, bro. I might as well have that part, the same Pop Tart the kid had in school that was he bit into the shape of a gun. That's was effective as the empty chassis was. Um, what else? I got
There
that
was
one. Got
no
that
there
one.
was no
Got
red
this
dye number 5 in that chassis though.
one. True. Probably why we got booted. Yep. So those are where I'm at. Please help out. Help with funding. You gonna tell them about Sharon,
Yeah,
or
I'm
you want
gonna
me to?
no, go ahead. But yeah, we'll end it with Sharon and then Brooks' show.
All right. Last one is my friend Sharon. She's a Second Amendment advocate out of New York. Her name, I mean, not New York, geez, make crickets. Washington State, Sharon Hinchcliffe. She got diagnosed with cancer. She needs help paying the bills. It's horrible. She's on GiveSendGo.com. SA Hinchcliffe, HINCHCLIFFE. Sharon Hinchcliffe. Please help her if you can. Really appreciate it. Again, you can just click on my thing, scroll down on X if you want that. Second for everyone, that's what I am on X. The number two, ND for number four, everyone. If you can help, help. I'd really appreciate it. Thank you very much. Also, I posted something, my friend Sean that helped me start Diversity Shoot. We went in it together. His brother just died this week. Suddenly, I've known him since he was in high school. Uh, I don't think, what is he, 44? And passed away suddenly. Um, Please help him pay the funeral expenses because, like most dudes, he didn't think he was going to drop dead before he turned 45.
Yeah, wow.
So if you can help, please help. Again, he has a GoFundMe. It's on my page. If you can please do that, I'd appreciate it. Let me pin it to the top of my page right now. So Sharon is a little further down. Jimmy, since they're burying him next week, I pinned him to the top of the page because that's the help we need right now. Thank you very much. I really appreciate it. Um, and thanks for listening to me babble for a couple hours on Saturdays.
Sorry, I was digging into X there and got started reading some. So I'll just add. Then at the end, we'll the show will end, and then YouTube will direct you over to another of our friends, Brooke, who runs a Great Start Shooting School. And because it's called a Great Start Shooting School, I'm assuming YouTube can't figure out that that's a positive thing. So they take those words and misunderstand. And I think that's part of the reason she gets issues with her channel. But the other part is she has, for a long time now, many years, been hosting a show every Saturday afternoon for about 20 minutes and not half an hour or so to talk about different aspects of normalizing the conversation on mental health awareness and suicide prevention. I've known that that's been an issue since I started going to the Gun Rights Policy Conference in 2015. And it was made clear for the first time for me at least, that the antis are using gun deaths, the number gun deaths specifically, and not gun murders or something else, because they need to include suicide to make the number seem anything bigger than insignificant. Because when you look at crime numbers, it's literally insignificant. Like no one is really going to be concerned about 3,000 deaths a year or even 11,000 deaths a year. But when you can turn it into 63,000 deaths a year, and it sounds like a bigger number, and they can play with that in different ways, but they almost always include the number of suicides, and that's something that obviously you're not going to prevent each individual suicide, but in general trends can be determined and research can be done and influence can be had over a group of individuals or people that are at risk. And the antis will never bring that up. They'll use the numbers of suicides against gun owners, gun ownership, and guns, but they won't ever. When have you ever seen a strategy or a solution from their side that involves or even includes or even addresses the suicide issue, which is 2/3, two out of every three, 6 out of every 10 deaths with a gun? So Brooke's the only one out there helping to normalize that conversation so that we can have more effective conversations amongst ourselves without forgetting that aspect, and more effective conversations with the other side, as well as just normalizing mental health conversations. We talk about a broken arm, like, oh, I got a cough or I poked my eye out or something. We could talk about that casually because normal physical issues aren't taboo, right? There's no societal issue against us talking about a broken arm or if we poke our eye out, all kinds of gross things we talk about, right? But if we talk about mental health, like the idea that we don't feel sad or we are feeling sad or don't feel bad, or I'm having trouble transitioning out of a job or a role, or this is confusing me, I don't know why, or whatever the hell it is, right? We don't talk about that stuff for some reason. And that's one of these things that the antis have used to capitalize on and to exploit. They capitalize into their advantage and they exploit the rift so that they know that we're not going to talk about it. They know that we're not going to address suicide. At least historically, we haven't addressed suicide, so they continue to poke that or use that as a leverage against us. And we only have one organization out there, Walk Talk America, that's working at it at the national level, the intersection of mental health and the gun industry and the community. But they're only 2, 3, 5 people or something with a couple of bucks, and they do what they can do. Brooke is the only other person I know of that's putting in consistent effort on any kind of regular basis for this. So again, we talked about sharing the projects that are worth sharing and supporting financially the ones that are worth supporting. I don't think Brooke. Well, actually, I shouldn't say that. She has a Patreon. You can definitely, if you have the financial resources, support Brooke. I know that our Patreon does, but you can support all of these, including Brooke, by just sharing, just clicking that link and sharing it around on the internet over and over and over. You do it today, do it tomorrow, do it the next day. That adds up and is how the internet works. So, for something being viral is just because a bunch of people shared it. So if you want to intentionally make something viral, you intentionally share something. It doesn't just happen. It's not a one-to-one, but the only way it'll ever happen is when we exercise that muscle. So I end the show with that nag each week. Thanks for being patient with it, but hopefully it's becomes second nature that we are the internet. Really, it's not there for us to experience. We are it. Like what we do is creates the experience that is the internet. So, I post this meme every once in a while. What is the future? Like what's presented to us or what we create, essentially. And if you are on the side of it's what we create, then fucking create it. Click your fucking buttons. Do actions that have consequences intentionally. All right, we'll see you next week. I think we're going to see you next week. Is there you be back next week?
Yeah, I'll be here. I'll be around.
Right on. So, well, yeah, we'll see you next week. Ask questions over at gunquestions.com. Thanks for asking them in the comments here live. That's what it's all about. That's why we do the show live instead of recording it. So, I don't have anything queued up. Maybe I do. We'll end with this.